Hello, everyone. I'm Dijon,
And I'm Mayara.
and welcome to the Mustcast, the podcast about the art of storytelling and how it's used across different mediums. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see our channel grow, and to click the notification bell so that you're notified when we post. So, today we'll actually be skipping over the media we're consuming section because we got a lot to talk about. We got a bunch of
Hmm.
gaming showcases and Across the Spider-Verse to talk about, so it's going to be a jam-packed episode, mostly full of gaming stuff. So, we'll be skipping that and going straight to animation. So there was a trailer for Bleach Thousand Year Blood War Arc Part 2. And it's coming out
Ooh.
way sooner than I thought it was, because it was a Thousand Year Blood War Arc came out sometime in the fall last year, or maybe a little earlier than that. And it's coming out in July, on July 8th. So yeah, I'm excited to get back into that. The animation is better than ever, and I'm excited to finally get this arc animated. And Kubo is essentially adding a lot of things he didn't get a chance to add into the manga because uh, he kind of just had to get it done. So yeah, I'll
Mhm.
probably try and finish my reread of Bleach around then because I have like 20 chapters left. So once I get back into it, I'll finish it very quickly, probably within a day, honestly. Um, there was a new trailer for TMNT Mutant Mayhem that showed off a lot of the villains. I didn't know this until the trailer, but Ice Cube is playing Superfly. I knew he was playing Superfly, but he's the main villain. I wasn't sure. I thought the main villain
Oh.
was gonna be Baxter Stockman, which I believe he is in the movie, and he's played by Giancarlo. Now that I'm thinking about it, because I actually forgot. Let me double check that, because I'm pretty sure Baxter Stockman is in the movie, and he's played by Giancarlo Esposito.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure he'll probably have something to do with like how mutants were created in this universe. So maybe Baxter Stockman will be like the secret main villain or something like that. But from the trailer, it seems like Ice Cube Superfly is the main villain. But also something that's been revealed, and then I think in like I forget what it's called, but they released like these bios for the characters, and in one of
Mm.
them it was revealed that Leo has a crush on April, and a lot of people have a problem with that because he's a mutant turtle, and I'm like, but like this is a fictional world. Why is that weird?
Right. Isn't that
Do the
like
turtles
a thing anyway? Because I vaguely remember in the animated series from like the 2000s that was also like a kind of a subplot, or not a subplot, but it was like implied.
in 2012? Donnie had a crush on um, April, and Leo had a crush on Karai.
Mm.
Um,
Got you.
but like, do the turtles not deserve love because they're mutants? Like that's I feel like that's a weird take to be like these fictional characters who are the same age aren't allowed to have a crush on each other because one of them is a mutant. And that's just strange. And I feel like the people who have a problem with that might have some deeper issues they need to take care of. Because
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
if like it's a sentient being that can make its own choices and is the same age as the other character. Why is it weird for them to have a crush on each other? It makes
Right.
no sense. I feel like people are just being weird about it because they're not real, and it's like, bro, they're cartoon
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah.
There was also a new trailer for My Adventures with Superman, and it was announced that it's going to be released on July 6th, and we'll have a 2 episode premiere on Adult Swim and release on HBO Max, or as it's just called Max, the next day. WB needs to get their life together. Um, but yeah, I've been talking about how much I love reading early Superman stories lately, and this will be another, early Superman story. So I'm excited to see how they tell Superman's, early days as a hero in this cartoon.
Yeah.
We've been needing a new Superman cartoon. Literally haven't had one since the '90s, which is ridiculous. Um, Still watching Unicorn Warriors Eternal. I think I'm like 2 episodes behind again because I had caught up and then fell behind again. Um, in the last episode I watched, they were trapped on this boat surrounded by a magical barrier, and one of the characters had to summon a kraken to
Mm.
destroy the barrier,
Mm.
and but she didn't know how to send it back to where it came from, so they have to fight it, and she gets knocked out. But she finds herself in the memory of Melinda. This character is essentially like I've said in previous episodes. The whole premise is that there's these three warriors that are always being resurrected by a robot that was built by the wizard Merlin to essentially stop this evil entity that keeps like reviving every couple of decades or whatever. And
Mm.
the revival process with this specific character kind of got messed up. So the memories of both of the characters kind of overlapping. But the memory of the warrior was supposed to completely overtake the person, but it didn't. So she ended up in like a past memory of Melinda, who is the warrior, and that's what that last episode I watched was about. But yeah, moving into the bigger stuff. So Universal and Illumination are reportedly closing in on a deal to make a Legend of Zelda movie,
I saw this. I'm
and
actually excited for it.
I'm not,
Oh, why not?
because I think that Illumination did a great job with Mario. Despite
Mm.
my criticism of it, it's a good movie. Um, and that they'll do an even better job with the sequel, and they'll do a great job with most other Nintendo project franchises like Kirby, for example. But nothing they've made has shown me that they're capable of making the type of Zelda movie that I want.
Uh,
I'm sure they would make a fun Zelda movie,
mm.
like they made a fun Mario movie. But just like Mario, I'm not sure it'll be anything remarkable. Um,
Ah.
Mario was a speed run of references with pieces of what could have been a very interesting story throughout, but it never really went anywhere in the end. For me, Zelda is got to tell an emotional story that everyone can enjoy and that we'll look back on years later and appreciate, like a Pixar film. Um,
Ah.
you
Okay.
could say that my expectations are high. Understandably, I would understand if someone were to say that, but I just don't like to settle for mediocrity. And I want
That's
this
real.
movie to be good. Is it Evan Von Doom on Twitter describes what I hope happens in this movie, and he says the funniest thing Illumination could do is make a soft and thoughtful Zelda movie that captures the stoic heroism and beauty of the games and not their usual schlock. No one would expect that, and I'm like, that's what I hope they do, because there are examples of other studios out there. A lot of examples that people are posting online. In reference to people like me who aren't completely convinced that they can do it, or how Sony went from making movies like the Emoji Movie to Spider Verse and Mitchell versus Machines and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good point, but Illumination hasn't shown that type of growth in anything that they've been making over the last decade or so.
Right.
But yeah, Illumination is a talented animation studio. It's just that their writing doesn't really work for me, and I'm not sure if it necessarily works for Zelda. But like I said at the beginning, this is Universal and Illumination because Illumination is under Universal. Another studio that's under Universal is DreamWorks, who just made a beautiful and thought-provoking film in Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. The team who made that movie, on the other hand, could make a
Mm.
phenomenal Zelda film.
Ooh. True.
So I just don't think. I think that it's fine for Nintendo to put all of their eggs into the basket that is Universal, but not
Mm.
necessarily the basket that is Illumination. I don't think Illumination needs to be making all of the Nintendo films, animated films.
Okay.
I think they
That
need
makes
to
sense.
disperse that out amongst DreamWorks and Illumination, and I forget the name of the studio, but apparently, Universal is starting another animation studio that's for more mature films. Because I want a Metroid movie, and the last person I want to make a Metroid movie is Illumination. So
That's real.
it's just like I'm sure it'll be a fine movie. Like I don't think Illumination will make a bad Zelda movie. I just don't think they're gonna make a particularly good one either.
Ah, that makes sense.
But I would understand why. I'm excited for a Zelda movie in general. That's about it. But this also opens the door for a bunch of other stuff, like Kirby. They could do Kirby, and I would like that.
Yeah.
You ever watch Kirby Right Back at You?
I love Kirby Right
Uh,
Back at You. That's
that
like peak childhood for
oh
me.
man, the theme song's so good.
So good.
It's so
And it's like
unnecessarily good.
every time I ask people about it, they're like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "There's no way," because it's like if you watch Sonic X
Oh
growing up,
yeah, I used to
there's
watch
no.
Sonic X and Kirby Right Back at You on Kids WB.
Yeah, there's no excuse. If you watched one, you had to have watched
You
the
had
other.
to. You had to. It was a fun cartoon. And just like they made a reference to the old Mario cartoon in the Mario movie, they at the beginning they have to play the Kirby Right Back at You uh, theme song or opening song.
Right.
They have to.
It's so necessary.
But yeah, I hope it's good. I'll leave it at that. Um, so now we're gonna get into Across the Spider Verse.
Yes.
Man, so you saw it on Saturday.
I did.
I saw it twice the week before the opening night, and I saw it again on that Sunday. And man, I love a good Defying Destiny story, and
Same.
that's one of the core themes of this film. Specifically, does Spider-Man need trauma to be Spider-Man? And that is a question you have to watch to find out, because we're going to start non-spoilers, but later on we will get deep into spoilers. So speaking of trauma, Gwen is basically the co-protagonist of this film. With I feel like it spends almost as much time following Gwen as it does Miles, and we
Definitely.
learn a lot about Gwen's life back in her home dimension, and how her experience in Miles' universe has affected her. Um, but one of the main villains of this movie is the Spot, and he's
Mm,
a fun character. That
very fun.
I heard his voice and immediately went, that sounds like Jason Schwartzman, but there's no way it is him, right? And then the credits rolled, it was him. I was like, of course it was. He voices Sonic in the most recent two movies, and he also voices Leonardo in the Rise of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Um,
Gotcha.
but yeah, he was seemingly one of the first characters in comic books, if not the first, to have the type of powers that he has, where he creates portals and can reach through them into other portals. He was one of the very first characters that would do that. But in the comics, he's always treated like a joke, despite the fact that he has really cool powers. There was a period of time in the comics where he was an assassin and was using his powers in the most horrifying ways possible to murder people. But even
Mm.
that lasted briefly, and the character was always killed off and then somehow randomly brought back to life. So he was always just treated as a joke. And they play that, they use that in this movie as kind of like, a meta commentary, with the Spot being treated as a villain of the week by Miles.
Right.
And his goal is to become more than that, and to become a bigger villain. The soundtrack, so good.
Oh,
It's so good.
fantastic.
Soundtrack by Metro Boomin is great. I've been listening to a couple songs off of that over and over again. Am I Dreaming, which is the end credit songs, and Hummingbird, the song that plays right before Gwen comes through the portal into Miles' universe again.
Mm.
They're so good. They're so good. And the score by Daniel Pemberton is also incredible. Gwen's theme is great. I've listened to that theme a lot. And he managed to make another menacing theme with Spider-Man 2099's theme, just like
Excuse me.
Prowler's theme was very menacing in the first one.
Right.
But yeah, but going back to Gwen, hiding your secret identity from your family is like a classic superhero trope, and
Mm.
some would argue that it's a bad one. And oftentimes, a hero telling their family their secret will do more good than harm, But in this
Yeah.
movie, they actually give you a good reason why Miles shouldn't tell his parents,
Right.
by showing you early on what happens when you tell your parents your secret identity. That way, when it comes to Miles doing it, um, they actually have a reason for him to be more hesitant, rather than in most stuff it's just like, I have to do it because that's how it's always done, rather than giving them an actual solid concrete reason.
Right.
And then eventually they tell the people anyway, and they get over it real fast.
Yeah, and it's like, what even was the point?
So yeah, I like that they're actually playing with that trope a little bit. Um,
Same, same.
but before we get into spoilers, the last thing I'll mention is one of the biggest, arguably the whole point of the film, the biggest theme is Miles Spider-Man. And the movie
Mm.
spends a lot of time tackling that meta question of, is Miles Spider-Man? Because as we all know, some very loud and obnoxious, racist, and conservative people online don't think that
Mm.
Miles is Spider-Man. And the movie references that in a very clever way. And it's definitely not a spoiler to say that the answer is yes, of course, Miles is Spider-Man.
Right.
But you have to watch it to find out exactly how they tackle that entire situation. Be yourself has always been the core of what Miles Morales represents. It's the tagline for his video game, and
Mm.
in this game, and I mean, excuse me, this movie and the last movie, they constantly say anyone can wear the mask. Um, and Miles continues to do his own thing in this movie, no matter what his parents, friends, or other Spider people think, because he is Spider-Man, and nobody can take that away from him. But
Right.
what are your thoughts before we get into spoilers?
Most of my thoughts are very like intrinsically tied with the spoilers, so I will save them. All
Okay.
I'll say is that like I love the movie to pieces. It was great.
Oh yeah, easy 10 out of 10. Like this movie a lot. Um,
Yeah.
but right before we jump into spoilers, though, I actually will say I feel like a lot of people, understandably so, feel like you can't properly judge a film Well, actually, no. Before I say this, I actually should get into spoilers. So actually, I take it back. Spoiler alert. We're getting into spoilers. Spoiler alert once again. So, to be continued. And Beyond the Spider-Verse. This is part one. It used to actually be called uh, Across the Spider-Verse Part 1. But
Right.
the reason I want to put that in the spoiler section, despite the fact that it's technically not a spoiler, is because I still want people to be surprised that it's a part 1 and not, and you know, to be watching it expecting it to all wrap up, but then be surprised when it isn't.
I know, I
So
definitely was. I was
yeah,
like, to be continued. What?
yeah, I don't want to spoil that part, but I knew it was a part 1 because when it was first announced and they like showed the logo, it was called Cross the Spider Verse Part 1. So I knew that it wasn't going to be resolved in this film, especially once we
Yeah.
got to the third act and the music just kept swelling, and I was like, oh, this is not the end. um, Yeah, but I wanted to say that, you know, a lot of people feel like you can't like a movie like this, which is one half of a whole, more than the first one because it's only one half of the whole. And I can't necessarily say I like it more than the first one just yet because I've only seen it twice. I've seen the first one like 5 times, um, and it's still recent in my mind. I gotta let it stew, you know.
Right,
But
right.
I have a feeling I will like it more than the first one because something that I like about this, and something that Avengers Endgame, which is also one half of a whole, they both do, is that the beginning of them are much slower than the first
Mm.
one, and it really gives you enough time, a lot of time with the characters just interacting with each other and um, you know their world and their friends and their family, and I like that. I like seeing these
Yeah.
characters interact. And for me, all of the interactions between the characters were more meaningful in this film than they were in the last film, as well as just as even though it was unresolved, the the final act when well, I guess you could argue it wasn't unresolved because at the end, Miles still did accomplish something. He did fight back. He did, even though it wasn't his actual mom, tell his mom he was Spider Man, and
Right.
there was a sense of it's not complete because it wasn't his real mom. The fight isn't over, but there was still a sense of significant progress was made.
Yeah.
So that still makes it a complete film to me, and I feel like it is completely fine for you to like a movie like this without having seen the second part and still like it more than the first.
Right.
And I feel the same way about Endgame. I like Endgame more than Infinity War, even though a lot of people's argument of why Infinity War is better is because it's more of a complete film. You can watch it by itself, whereas Endgame requires you having seen Infinity War to really make it work. And I'm like, I don't care. I like Endgame more than Infinity War. It doesn't matter. Um, but yeah, the romance between Gwen and Miles is definitely one of my favorite parts of the movie. Um,
Mm.
this is one scene that I saw someone post a gif of that I noticed it a little bit the first time. I noticed it the second time I watched it, but seeing this gif uh, helped me notice it more. Is when Miles goes to start talking to Spider Bite and they start flirting a little bit. Gwen like was it Hobie points to Miles and looks at Gwen, and then Gwen turns and notices him flirting with her, shoots a web at him, and then yanks that man to, to follow her. And I was like, damn, she was hella jealous. She yanked that man so hard. She was
No, for
mad.
real.
It was hilarious. Um, but yeah, a very nitpicky problem a lot of people have with the narrative is that most of the Spider-Men wouldn't let innocents die if they knew they could stop it.
Mm.
Um, and that's fair. That's true. But I feel like
Yeah.
for
I
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was gonna say, I feel like it's a thing of like, of course we know that they wouldn't let innocents die if they knew they could stop it. However, that there's that like primal human fear of like, or it's like a trolley pop problem situation, and it's like that, and then also like me personally, if I was a Spider-Man and Miguel was like, you have to let innocents die, and it's like I'm scared of him. He's scary to me. If I were a Spider-Man, I'd be scared of him. So I'm like, I'm gonna listen to this guy. He knows what he's talking about, you know. And to me, that's what it read as. It's like I get that nitpick, but then also it's like again that thing of like what makes a Spider-Man, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also very easy for me to ignore that and believe that all of these variations of Spider-Man are versions of Spider-Man that are willing to make what they see as a small necessary sacrifice for the greater good.
Right.
I feel like it's easy for me to just make that assumption. Um, and it's understandable. It's an understandable, story decision to make for the sake of keeping the conflict compelling. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, going back to does Spider-Man need trauma as a core question of the film, and it's not really answered because of course this is part one of two. But
Right.
at Geek for Fun on Twitter gives an analysis that I think is very much what the writers are going for, and they say that the other Spider people can't break against this, but Miles can because he's new and he's an anomaly. He's the only thing that can change what Spider-Man means because he wasn't supposed to be Spider-Man.
Right.
Um, and how he handles this situation will prove why he deserves to be Spider-Man, despite what people say is supposed to happen for a person to be Spider-Man.
Right.
Um, and yeah, in an interview for this film with the directors, Jaquim DeSantos, Kent Powers, and Justin Thomas, the interview asked them, was any degree of the story meant to be a commentary on the fans who don't see Miles as Spider-Man? And they all immediately say yes, of course, in unison. And then Justin Thomas mentions how toxic some fans' ideas of canon, rules, and restricting who gets to be Spider-Man is. And to quote him specifically, he says, if Spider-Man is a character that's owned by the entire world, then the entire world should be represented in that character.
Exactly.
And yeah, I think that, like I mentioned before, the reason I say this is probably the most important theme of the film is because the idea is that Miles is going to break against what they think is meant to be canon to make Spider-Man Spider-Man, and this is to prove to the people in real life who don't think he should be Spider-Man why he is Spider-Man, and also story-wise to show everybody else why he's Spider-Man and why to be Spider-Man doesn't necessarily mean what they think it does,
Right.
because anyone can wear the mask in any situation, and they don't all have to have had the exact same life experience to be that character. Not just like you don't necessarily have to, like, everybody relates to Peter Parker, even though he's a white guy. No matter what race you
Right.
are, you're gonna relate to him, and you could say the same thing for Miles. You could say the same thing for Gwen. You could say the same thing for any version of Spider-Man, because a
Exactly.
lot of what they go through is universal, even if it is different and sometimes very specific to their culture.
Right.
And Miles represents that for the Spider people. And to finish this thought, I think that Miguel is projecting his insecurities heavily onto Miles, not only in the way that the obvious one where he destroyed the universe by trying to change things, and he's afraid that Miles might do the same, but also because I don't know if you noticed, he injects himself with something right before Miles meets him,
I
hinting
did notice.
hinting at him also not being a traditional Spider-Man, and hinting at the fact that he might be a person who's not supposed to be Spider-Man, and he's
Mm.
projecting his feelings about not supposed to be Spider-Man onto Miles, which I think would be cool if that is a thing that they're going
That'd be
for
very neat,
in the
and I
next
hope
movie.
that's what they're going for because, like, as of right now, I don't. I forgot what I was gonna say, so never mind. But I really do hope that that's what they're going for because I feel like that would be a neat angle to take with Miguel's character.
Yeah, Miguel's a fun character in this.
Very fun.
Now that man has problems in the comics. There's this one scene where um, there's this villain who's like, "If you let me kill this person, uh, I'll leave you alone." He's like, and he thinks about it for a second, goes, "Okay," and Miguel's just like, "Sure, all right, that sounds fair." And I'm pretty sure he doesn't actually let it happen, but it's just hilarious.
That
My
is crazy.
Yeah, Miguel he's wild in the comics too, but
Mm.
so there was a really big Easter egg in this. It's not an Easter egg. It was just a straight up cameo of Donald Glover as the Prowler.
Right.
And for those who don't understand the significance of this, Donald Glover wore a Spider-Man T-shirt in one of the openings for Community, and ever since then, fan casting for him as Spider-Man ran rampant. Which actually partially is responsible for the creation of Miles Morales,
Mhm.
by Brian Michael Bendis and I believe Amy Pascal. And him being the first person, he was also the first person to voice Miles in animation in
Oh.
I think the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon on Disney XD.
Oh wow.
And lastly, he plays Miles' uncle, Aaron Davis, in Spider-Man: Homecoming. And
Oh.
this version of Prowler he's playing is supposedly supposed to be that version of Aaron Davis that he plays in Spider-Man: Homecoming in the MCU that somehow got displaced into a different universe and got captured by this Spire Society. Another MCU connection we get is we get a glimpse at the sacred timeline, which appears in Loki. When Miguel begins explaining things to Miles about the Spider Verse, we see this flowing blue branch before they show the webs, and that is literally exactly what the sacred timeline visual looks like in Loki. So
Oh.
I feel like this movie is doing a much better. Um, it's just doing much better overall of making connected multiverse than the MCU is doing by itself. But that's besides the
Yeah.
point. Speaking of the Prowler, Miles is sent to Earth that the spider bit him was from, Earth 42, where his Miles, the Miles of that universe, didn't become Spider-Man even though he was supposed to, and instead became Prowler. And his father died instead of his uncle. And quick aside, we get a glimpse of his shoes, and I think because with the films they've always released a pair of Jordans with the films. I think that the Jordans we see him wearing those purple ones are probably gonna be the ones that they release next year with Beyond the Spider Verse. Also, I'm gonna send you pictures. I have the Across the Spider Verse Jordans.
Ooh.
It cost a lot, but it was so worth it. I still haven't worn them yet, but I'm gonna wear them probably Monday. No, Tuesday.
Okay.
I'm going to. I'm gonna wear them. I'm gonna wear them eventually, but they look so nice. I'm gonna send you pictures. They look great. But yeah, I have a theory that this version of Miles might be a good guy, even though they're making it seem like he's a villain, and that he took up the Prowler mantle to be a hero despite not having spider powers. Um, some stuff that we haven't talked about that we're probably about to get into a little bit. Is the other Spider people? We've only been talking about Gwen and Miles and Miguel, but you also got Spider Punk in this, and you've got Spider-Man India, Pavitra Prabhakar, and a couple other Spider people like Ben Riley,
Peter Parker,
and of course the original Peter Parker. So yeah, something I wanted to mention is that Hobie Brown, in the main universe, was actually the original Prowler, and he eventually becomes a hero. So I think they might be playing on that by having Miles be the Prowler in his universe. But despite the whole narrative being around like Miles, you're not supposed to be Spider-Man. This version of Miles, despite not having the spider and being in a significantly worse world because of that, still becoming a hero would just make a lot of sense. I think story wise. For Miles trying to prove them wrong, having another version of him that was set up to be a villain actually turned out to be a good person despite the circumstances. But yeah, going back to Hobie. Hobie's great.
Hobie is fantastic.
Hobie's fantastic in this film. Dang, why am I forgetting the name of the actor who plays him right now?
Daniel Kaluuya.
Yeah, Daniel Kaluuya. He's so good. He's so good. He's so cool. That moment when he takes the mask off and he was like, "How are you cooler under the mask? I was this cool the whole time." He's right. He was that cool the whole time.
For real.
I'm going to talk about it next week, but I actually started reading hella Spider-Man comics because I read Spider-Punk comics. I've read a lot of Spider-Gwen, and I think that's it so far. I'm also going to read a little bit of Silk, and some Spider-Man 2099. And some alternate universe Spider-Man comics where Peter actually has a daughter because they just won't let this man have a daughter in the main universe. But I'll talk about that next week. But yeah, the Spider-Man India is an example of a Spider-Man who hasn't gone through trauma. Even though he was supposed to, Miles stopped it, and he has had a great life. As far as we know, maybe he lost his uncle and that's it. Other than that, he's been doing pretty good just being Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So obviously that's very purposeful of having this one Spider-Man that's just happy all the time, where the rest of them are always being quippy, of course, and that may make it seem like they're happy, but they're not. They're all sad and depressed because that's what Spider-Man is. And it's funny because we want to see certain versions of Peter happy, but it's funny that we're talking about what makes Spider-Man and how all these very depressive things happen to him makes him Spider-Man. In the MCU, that is exactly what everybody wanted, including me. It was like, this man needs to go through more. He needs to struggle more. He needs to lose more people. People need to die. He needs to be broke. He needs to be homeless.
Oh, broke and homeless is crazy.
This man needs to be struggling to be the Spider-Man that we want. And it's hilarious that is that's exactly what they ended up doing in No Way Home, was essentially making him everything everybody wanted him to be, which is a loser who's broke, living in a dirty apartment. He's single, everything. Like
Mm.
they really made this man the Peter Parker that we know and love. Whereas in this other film, they're doing the complete opposite, where the main Peter, he's married, he's thriving, he's got a kid, everything's looking good for him. And the whole theme of this movie is, does Peter need to be depressed to be Spider-Man? And in real life, we're all like, yeah, he does. Just,
Mm.
but yeah, you say you wanted to save your thoughts for the spoiler section.
Right. So, first things first. Touching back on the spot, the twist as to like who he was, like, I it was insane. Because I was like, I had tried my best to avoid spoilers before the movie, like going to go see it myself. But Twitter is going to be Twitter, and they're going to show me Spider Verse stuff anyway. And they had I had saw some fan art. I forgot by who, but they drew the spot with Jobu Tubaki from Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, haha, donut villains. I'm like, oh, it's funny because he's the whole spot thing, donut holes, haha. But
Multiversal
then
bagels.
right. Then when they like revealed who he was, actually, I was like, that fan art makes sense now. And it was just like absolutely insane to me. And at first I wasn't really feeling it, but then I was like, you know what? Why not? Right? It's like I'd like the introduction of like just a new villain to the Spider-Verse, which is it's really neat to me. I'm glad that they managed to like justify it in a really good way, because at first I was like, that's stupid. Why is it this random guy? But then it's like they took the random guy and they made him interesting. So now I'm like, okay, I'm with it. I'm with it.
Yeah.
Let me think. What else? Oh,
Yeah, we're thinking. Also, a 14-year-old Preston. I'm trying. Let me see if I can pronounce his last name. Mutanga created a shot-for-shot version of the trailer with animated Lego characters, and
ooh,
then the producers asked him to work on the movie, and he animated the Lego section of Spider-Verse. A 14-year-old.
that is so cool.
And that part was hilarious when he reports into Miguel and was like, he's like, "Thanks, Peter. You're one of our best." But yeah, that was animated by a 14-year-old. That man
That's
is
crazy.
he's if he even decides to go to college or needs to go to college, he's getting in to whatever art school he
Oh yeah,
applies to. But even
no,
then,
for real.
he probably won't even need to, as long as he's already building a portfolio just on his own. So college isn't even going to be necessary for him, depending on what he wants to do. So
No, for real.
yeah, this kid's going
Also,
places.
I love the implication that Lego Spider-Man, of all the Spider-Man in the Spider-Verse, is one of the best. It's so funny to me because it's like he's just a little guy.
Yeah.
He's just a little guy. It's insane. Also, Peter Park's car had me like belly laughing in the theater. It wasn't that funny, but it was definitely very funny to me.
Oh, the spider car.
Hmm.
Yeah. When I first saw that it was alive, I was like, "What? Why?" And everybody keep making jokes about canon events. I was like, "What was his canon event?"
No, because for some of these Spider-Men, like for real, the dinosaur one during the chase scene, um, with Miles in yeah, Earth, whichever one, I forgot what it was. One of my friends leaned over to me and was like, his canon event was the Cambrian explosion, and I had to like hold in the amount of laughter that I had to hold in was insane.
Yeah. Honestly, so before we wrap this up, I want to talk about just the future of this Spider Verse in general. So, what is it? The writers, Chris Lord and Phil Miller said that they're done after this, but of course, it's Spider Man and it's Sony. They're not done. So
Right.
this universe is going to continue, and first and foremost, we need an anthology animated series where they're just constantly having episodes like 15-minute episodes or shorter, focus on
Right.
different universes, like within those universes, not necessarily crossovers, just within specific universes, and exploring those. But was it they're supposedly working on a Spider Gwen? I don't know if it's a series or a solo movie. Um, and I think that she, of course, should get her own thing because I've been reading comics. They're great. I want to see more of that universe. But also, I think that Miles needs his own movie or show that just takes place in his universe and
Yeah.
isn't a big multiverse or crossover thing. But I also want to see more of Spider Punk's world because
Same.
in the comics he's American and in this one he's British. So I wonder what changes they would make to probably not many because like the main villain is Norman Osborn, but he's the president, so they'll probably just make him the prime minister in his universe. Um,
Right.
so I don't know, changes wouldn't have to be that drastic. It would just be slightly different culture, but I would still be interested to see how a series focused on that character. Um, and 2099, honestly, he's a
Mm-mm.
very popular character. He definitely deserves to have his own thing as well. Like I just apparently they might be trying to make a live action 2099 film, Sony. So
Ooh,
they need to
that
just
would be
really
fun.
the problem is a Spider-Man universe works. Just Sony hasn't been doing great with it outside of the animated movies. Like
Mm,
they keep trying to make individual villain movies, and it's like you can do that with some of the villains, but not every Spider-Man villain needs their own movie. But if you lean into the multiverse, and even not even the multiverse, you can have a lot of these characters exist in the same universe. Like multiple Spider-Man exist in the same universe. It's just a thing. Like Silk is a Spider person who exists in the same universe as Peter. She got bit by the same spider as Peter. Who else? Miles, of course, exists in the same universe as Peter, and then in the comics,
right.
you have several Spider people. You also have the clones of Peter, like Ben Riley, who shows up in this movie, and they make they make jokes about him because in the comics he's very emo, so they make him very emo in this. Um, yeah, you have the clones. Was it Kane, Parker, and Ben Riley? So you could have multiple Spider people within one universe if they really wanted to do that.
Right.
But yeah, that's all I got. If you don't have anything else about Spider Verse,
Nope, just I loved it. Also, I think one of my favorite like fun facts about the behind the scenes is that for Hobie scenes when they did his, there's a secret like second Hobie hidden
yeah.
under
Well,
the floor. Like, huh?
at first, they eventually got rid of that.
Oh, they did? I didn't know that.
Yeah, when they were first working on it, they needed the Hobie to be connected to the guitar,
Right.
but eventually, through the pipeline, they removed it and they created it in an individual rig for the guitar by itself.
Okay, that makes sense. Because I was about to say, like, I went in knowing that fun fact, and just like thinking about it
That's
gave me the
hilarious.
giggles.
Just thinking about where in the frame the
Wait,
secret Hobie is
right?
hidden.
Where are they keeping him at? Show him to me.
But yeah, how they animated Hobie is very interesting because they just went over the top with him, where his guitar is a cutout and he's constantly changing colors and different parts of his body are moving at different frame rates. It's very interesting.
Very neat.
But moving on to comics, I'm gonna try to speed through these. I got a lot of comics and we got a lot to talk about, and we're already
Okay,
38 minutes in, and majority of it was Spider Verse, and we
that's
still got
crazy.
video games stuff to talk about. This is gonna be easily a 2 hour episode.
Oh
But
yeah.
Green Arrow, Volume One, Arsenal, Green Arrow 2, Black Canary, and Black Canary hunt down clues on the whereabouts of the original Green Arrow, Oliver Queen, when they stumble upon Arsenal's long lost daughter, Leanne. Arsenal being um, the former Speedy Green Arrow psychic. Um,
Mm.
Superman Earth 1 is a modern retelling of Superman's origin that I started reading. Like I said, I'm obsessed with Superman origin stories right now. And yeah, it's real good so far. It's very different. The Flash. So the 800th issue came out, but the 799th issue hasn't come out yet on DC Universe, even though it's out
Interesting.
already because they release it like a month after it comes out. So,
Ah,
but I bought issue 800 by itself just for the sake of supporting it. But now I gotta wait for issues 799 to come out next Tuesday before I read 800. So I've been trying to avoid spoilers on that, even though I've seen a some. Uh,
mm.
but yeah, in the last issue I read, 798, Linda and Wally have a third kid who is promptly, almost immediately kidnapped by Granny Goodness, who works for Darkseid. And Wily goes after her with the help of the Terrifics and an alternate universe, Our Man. Spirit World. Xanthi Zhao is a non-binary Chinese hero with the ability to travel in and out of the spirit world. Their superpower is based on the East Asian custom of burning joss paper at grave sites to send resources to ancestors in the spirit world, which allows
Oh,
which allows them to turn origami into like real objects, like making umbrellas, and swords and different weapons and stuff out of origami.
that's
Um,
neat.
yeah, she teams up with John Constantine to rescue Batgirl, who is trapped in the spirit world. Um,
Hmm.
Superman John Kent. John Kent finds himself in the Injustice universe, the comics universe that are a continuation of the story from the game. Um, where in that universe he died in his mother's womb, if you know the story of Injustice, because Superman was laced with some type of poison and made him think that Lois Lane was Doomsday, and he murdered her while she was pregnant, and
That's crazy.
then he became an evil dictator. Um, and John, who's now stranded in this universe, is slowly beginning to figure out what's happened to the world, and that it's Superman has taken over the world. Um, so Action Comics. So in Action Comics, this takes place in the main DC universe. In a universe with a family full of super people, including three Supermen. The original Superman, his son, and Chinese Superman, Supergirl, Superboy, Super Twins, and two Steels. You've got to come
Mm.
up with creative ways to combat these super powerful characters who all are living in the same city.
Right.
So in the concurrent running Superman comics, the main Superman comic and Action Comics, they literally came up with the same solution but with two different characters. They give the villains essentially the ability to duplicate themselves. So in Superman, Parasite gains the ability to multiply and infect people with tiny clones of himself, and therefore turning them into parasites.
Hmm.
And Parasite's power is that he absorbs energy and gets stronger. And naturally, Superman is absorbs sunlight energy, and that's where he gets his power. So he's a very diddly villain against Superman. And now there's like thousands of him going across the entire city, absorbing the energy of all the other super people, and slowly like continue to clone themselves and like spread across the city and outside of the city to the world. And
Mm.
they have to figure out how to stop him from replicating and stealing people's powers, and all that jazz. And in Action Comics, Metallo starts kidnapping people and turning them into robots that aren't as powerful as him, but are still run by kryptonite, which of course is Superman's weakness and the weakness
Mm.
of most of the super people. So they found out a way to combat the fact that there are like a dozen super people in Metropolis at once,
Mm.
which is interesting. I caught up on Static. In the latest issue, the Blood Syndicate, which is a team of heroes from another Milestone comic, made an appearance and tangled with the so far unnamed Shadow Man that's been murdering people who are hunting down Bang Babies. Meanwhile, Static is dealing with typical superhero strife of being pulled in too many directions. But luckily, unlike Miles, luckily his family knows that he's Static.
Right.
um, and lastly, the Bang Baby hunters are still going after Virgil's young mentee for his powers. Uh, so last, the Radiant series, Radiant Pink. Um, the story was definitely fast tracked due to the fact it's only 5 issues, but
Mm.
it was nice to learn more about Radiant Pink slash Ava. She was a streamer dealing with depression and extreme levels of burnout because she was trying to be a superhero and stream at once, sometimes
Right.
literally at the same time because she has the ability to teleport. Um, on top of all of that, she ended up in a extremely toxic relationship with
Oh.
a super villain. Um, but her powers got a cool upgrade. Before she could only make portals, but now she can create clones. I can't tell. I can't tell if the clones are illusions or actual clones. But I guess
Mm.
we'll see in the next issue of Radiant Black. Because in Radiant Black, they are trying their best to get this comic animated. I swear. They already did an animated short with the voice of Terry McGinnis on Batman Beyond playing Radiant Black. Um, Terry McGinnis isn't the name of the actor; it's the name of the character. I actually forget the name of the actor.
Mm.
But they also made an entire orchestral theme for the character, and there are several other like Power Ranger slash Super Sentai themed comics within this universe that they call the Massiveverse that started with Radiant Black, and
Mm.
the creator actually wrote on some Power Rangers comics. He actually wrote the famous Shattered Grid event. Um, they're trying their best to make this into an animated series, and I don't blame them. It's real good. I like Radiant Black. This is the first comic series that I've been reading since the beginning, and I purchased every issue.
Ooh.
Yeah, Radioback's fun. I haven't read any of the other comics in the Masterverse though. I'm not too interested in those, but I'm gonna keep reading Radioback. Um, moving on to TV and film, we have just one thing before we jump into video games. Captain America:
Okay.
Brave New World. So, a set photo of Anthony Mackie and Harrison Ford was shown with the new title and release date, May 3rd, 2024. So it was formerly titled New World Order and was likely changed because that is the name of an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, and the
I was about
main
to say.
and the main villain is Jewish. So
Yikes!
they were like, maybe we shouldn't call the movie that. And the movie could either be the best or the worst thing ever, no in betweens, because they're seemingly going to be tackling some very heavy subjects surrounding Israel and Palestine. So this could either be amazing or horrible. There's
I hope.
nothing in between that. I hope they do a great job and actually have some writers who are qualified to discuss this topic working on this movie,
Yeah.
because Captain America is a great place to tackle it. You just have to have the
Right.
right team, especially
Yeah.
since Captain America just became a black man.
Oh yeah. So it's just like this.
So they
It's
got a
not.
lot. They got a lot going against them. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, moving on to video games. Street Fighter 6. So make this quick. I haven't finished story mode, so I don't have too much to say about that. But former video game journalist and writer Alana Pierce posted a clip from one of her Twitch streams on Instagram, where she just showers praise on Capcom about how they're constantly, consistently releasing amazing remakes alongside sequels to beloved games and experimental new games like Exo Primal, which they'll probably show more of at the Capcom Showcase we'll talk about later. And they have a return to form with games like Street Fighter 6, where the previous Street Fighter people weren't really feeling, but this one people are loving, and I'm one of those people. This game is great. It's just everything that Street Fighter 5 wasn't. It has a decent sized roster of diverse fighters, great online connectivity, and a very fun single player mode. They've also put a lot of effort into helping people learn how to play the game with
Nice.
with character tutorials and combo trials, which have both helped me step up my Kin game significantly.
Nice.
And if that's still not enough, they have a new control scheme called Modern that plays like Smash Brothers, where essentially you do your specials with a single button and push it in different directions to do different special moves. And you can also
Nice.
do assisted combos by holding R2 and just pressing one of the face buttons. But yeah, last but not least, I'm having a lot of fun with the World Tour mode, which is a story mode. It's a little bare bones, but as I'm playing it, I can see how it can be expanded on in future games or even in some DLC. Yeah, I'm just having a good time with Street Fighter, and I'll probably have a guest on to talk about it a little bit more in a couple episodes or two.
Nice.
Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. So it's a side scroller, which a lot of people they want a new Prince of Persia game. Not necessarily a side scroller, but to me, honestly, this looks fun. I hope it's good. I'll probably check it out. I think I think there's some type of Ubisoft. Oh, I'm subscribed to PlayStation. I think it comes with some type of Ubisoft thing that might allow me to play the game for free. So I'll probably just check it out that way. But either way, I'm probably gonna end up checking it out. It looks fun. They also showed Mortal Kombat 1. They had a gameplay reveal, but most of the information I have is coming from after the fact, because they had a bunch of YouTubers come in and actually play the game for an extremely short amount of time, like 30 minutes or something like that, which is wild, but better than nothing. And we got to see a lot of gameplay. They showed off a lot of the fatalities and character intros and how the cameo system works. And the game looks fun. It doesn't look that different just from watching it from Mortal Kombat 11. So I'm interested to see how differently it feels. But I hear that combo wise, it might, just from what I'm seeing in my analysis, it seems like it might be easier to do combos. And in my mind, just from looking at it, I'm comparing it to Injustice, the first one. And Injustice 2, it is extremely difficult for me to pick up new characters and learn combos. I feel like everything is overcomplicated in that game, whereas in the first Injustice, it was very easy to just hop into a character and figure stuff out on your own without looking anything up on like YouTube or anything. And it looks like all of the the attacks and combos and stuff string together very well, and that just by pressing buttons you will see how things work and be able to figure stuff out. And that's good. I want to just learn how to play on my own instead of having to always watch combo videos to try and figure stuff out. Or they could do something like Street Fighter does, incorporate combo trials or character tutorials, because that's how I got better with Ken and learned some new combos. But yeah, something else that was revealed in one of the intros they do. The way they do intros is different now, where because it's next gen only. It's next. I mentioned it last episode, but it's next gen only and Switch, which is weird as hell. But because it's next gen only, the way when you choose your characters and your cameos, the characters like clash together and they're like pushing their forearms against each other, and they say stuff to each other that are contextual between each character. So it's unique between each characters whenever they're fighting, and then immediately push back and just like transitions into the map. And it's like they're hiding the loading screen, but at the same time, it's a very quick loading screen. So it's like showing the progress that fighting games have made in terms of loading because of next gen consoles.
I really like the seamless. I've seen like the gameplay trailers and all that. I really, really like the seamless transitions. Like, I don't know what it is about it, but it just tickles my brain so much. I love it.
They're fun. I was afraid that the fatalities, because the games are getting more and more realistic, might get too gross. But they haven't for me yet. They haven't gotten there yet. They're close, but not quite. I thought they would. Kenshi's is a little cruel. He spins his sword, pointing straight down, and then shoves it into a character's mouth, and I'm like, that's messed up. But it is a fatality.
Yeah.
So it's bound to be messed up. So if you're squeamish, Mortal Kombat obviously is the game for you.
Right.
Honestly, they should, and I don't understand why they don't have this. Maybe they will. I don't know. But they should 100% just straight up have either a mode that allows you to change the color of blood, or straight up gets rid of blood. Because YouTube is shutting down anything related to Mortal Kombat. They will not let you show fatalities on YouTube. They just won't. Fatalities or the like super moves. You can show them. You'll just get demonetized.
Of course.
So like channels like IGN and stuff like that who can afford to do it because they have sponsors, they can do it. But like fighting game YouTubers, especially ones that focus on Mortal Kombat, just won't be able to show fatalities unless they are willing to let their certain videos get demonetized, which sucks.
Yeah.
But moving away from the gameplay, I'm talking about the story. Something that's interesting is that Sub-Zero in this is Bihan, which if you don't know the significance of that, is that Bihan was the original Sub-Zero, who killed Scorpion's family, and then Scorpion came back as a Hell Wraith. Well, he's killed Scorpion, his family, and his clan. Scorpion came back as a Hell Wraith and killed him in revenge, and then Bihan returns as Noob Saibot, which is this like demon person with black goo, and his little brother Kuai Liang takes over the mantle of Sub-Zero, and for the past 20 years Kuai Liang has been the main Sub-Zero, and Bihan always ends up becoming Noob because Noob's a popular character, so they always have to bring him in somehow.
Right.
But now he's the main Sub-Zero again, which has been a while since he's been the main Sub-Zero. But it seems like he might be turning evil again. But if they do that again, I want them to do something different. Either he doesn't turn evil, or if he does turn evil, I want him to not necessarily become Noob. I want him to keep the Sub-Zero name, but I want him to get the moveset of Noob Saibot, but instead of using the black kind of like goo ectoplasm that he uses in the previous games, it's black ice. So he still has ice powers, but the Noob moveset and animations and all that.
That'd be neat.
And that Kuai Liang instead keeps the name that he has before he becomes Sub-Zero, which is Tundra. So that he's still his own unique character, but he still keeps the ice powers, which I think would be interesting.
That would be really neat.
But yeah, I think some of the things that are hinted at in the trailers and the gameplay and the characters' interactions and the intros is the fact that Melina is the Queen of Edenia, which is another big change because in this universe, Liu Kang in the last game he took up the role that Raiden used to have and became the protector of Earthrealm. He became the fire god, and Raiden became a normal human. And he essentially reset the timeline and is trying to, and supposedly based on information we have, is trying to make a new peaceful timeline. And he's changed some things. And in this universe, Sub-Zero and Scorpion aren't fighting each other; they're working together. And Melina and Katana also aren't fighting each other, and they're treating each other like sisters.
Oh, that's
And
good.
something that people are assuming because they show in the trailers that she is transforming, like her monstrous features, instead of it being because she's half, like she's a clone of Katana mixed with Tarkatan DNA, which is the same race as Baraka. She instead is like mutating, and she's like actually her sister. At least that's what it seems like. And it seems like maybe despite what Luke Kane's efforts, there are certain things he just can't change.
Right.
And that might be what they're going for with the story, but we'll see. I'm interested. I like Mortal Kombat story modes a lot, so I'm very interested to see what they do with the story mode. But
Exciting.
Nick Cage is going to be a survivor in Dead by Daylight. And first off, that's ridiculous. It's wild that they're doing that. But also, Nick Cage gives 100% to every single project he works on, and I love it. He voices every single line of dialogue and grunt for his character in this game, and he is very interested in working in video games. And I really want to see Nick Cage in like a Kojima game or something.
That would be fun, like Death Stranding and Norman.
Yeah, because was it recently? They're working on Death Stranding 2, and recently Kojima posted something that had a picture of a character, one of the actresses that we already know is going to be in the game, standing alongside Jenna Ortega. So Jenna Ortega might be in Death Stranding 2. So like, first off, that man just wants to make a movie. Just make a movie, bro. Make a movie, Kojima.
For real.
I'll see it. I don't care if it's 4 hours long. I'll watch your movie. But yeah, Nick Cage in Dead by Daylight is hilarious. I want to see people play it just to hear his voice lines.
I think my favorite part about it is he's in Dead by Daylight because his son loves Dead by Daylight. Yeah. That is so sweet to me.
I feel like this is one of those cases where celebrity, just similar like Keanu Reeves, where like a celebrity comes up to talk about a game that they're in, but they're actually passionate about it and they aren't just phoning it in and like don't care. Like for some weird reason, Al Pacino showed up at the Game Awards and I was like, why?
Are you here?
Why is he here? It made no sense. He also couldn't read the teleprompter because he's old. Like it was very weird. He said it out loud. He was like, I can't read that. But
at least he's honest.
Yeah, but Sonic Superstars. Yeah, we're getting a new 2D Sonic game with 4-player co-op, and we got the classic Sonic designs. We got classic Amy design, classic Sonic design where he's a little short and chubby, and yeah, it looks cool.
Very cool. I'm excited. I've never really been like super big into Sonic. I have like most of the original games on the Wii Virtual Console, but I've never really like been like, I've played them of course, but never really been big into it. But this looks interesting. I might pick it up.
See, I'm waiting for a very specific type of open world Sonic game before I get into it. And I feel like what is it? Frontiers opened the door. And I feel like if they keep expanding on that formula, they can make something great.
Definitely.
So Lies of P had a trailer and announced a demo.
Yay!
Yeah, Lies of P is like it's a Souls-like game that is like retelling the story of Pinocchio in this gothic horror world that looks real interesting. I played a little bit of the demo. The combat's a little slow for my taste, but I'm probably gonna finish up the demo. It's around like 36-40 minutes, so I'll probably finish it up and report back next episode, or I don't know, maybe if I do it before our next recording for this episode, I'll talk about it. But yeah, it looks interesting. I'm excited to play around with it a little bit more. I had died to this one character, to this one boss, and went all the way back to the beginning. I said, nope, I'm not doing this anymore. I was just like, I don't feel like it. I don't have the time for this right now.
That's real. That's real.
So they showed off some gameplay for Alan Wake 2, which they straight up say like this is their first survival horror game. So they're actively going out their way to make this like a proper like third person shooter survival horror game rather than just a psychological horror like the first game was. And I know you said before you're concerned about how the two dual not timelines, but characters will affect the story. Right. And they straight up say that what's his name? Sam Lake says that there after a certain point, I think you start off playing as Alan, and then you get to a point where you can switch between the two, and you could literally play the whole game as one of the characters, and you never have to switch to another, or you can choose to go back and forth if you want. I don't think after a certain point you'll be forced to play as another character, or maybe you will towards the end, but for the most part, like I don't feel like there's going to be that problem you were worried about.
That's good. Because that was one of my biggest worries. In checking out the gameplay trailer though, they really, for this being their first like survival horror-esque game, they really nailed like the style and the tension of it from what we saw, like really well.
Yeah. Um, yeah. They also announced that um, Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 will have 3-player co-op, and I've been really interested in this game because it feels like a hack and slash game mixed with aliens because the monsters kind of look like the xenomorphs from Aliens,
Mm.
and it's kind of a bit like Dynasty Warriors in the sense that you're destroying a bunch of enemies all at once, like dozens of them at once, and
Ah,
it looks fun. Um, I'll have to check it out if the reviews are good. But there's a lot of games coming out this year. I gotta pace myself
yeah.
because I'm already. I'll talk about it in the next episode, but I'm making a schedule to try and get myself to finish certain games. We have 4 things to talk about. These next 2 are going to be relatively big though, so not long, but just big in terms of notoriety.
Right.
Spider-Man 2. So big surprise, and it was hilarious. Brian Intihar, the creative director of Spider-Man 2, he came out there so fast, like a bat out of hell. You can tell this man is like, I need to get this game done. I need to get back to work right now. Because before what's his name, Jeff Keighley even announced him, he was already walking out. And then before Jeff Keighley finished the segment, he was already walking away. I was like, because I think they're notoriously known to not do crunch, but I feel like this man is too stretched for them to not be crunching. Because this man was rushing. He walked in there with a hoodie on and some jeans. I was like, this man wasn't here for a showcase. He was here to just tell us a little bit and then get back to work. He was rushing.
Right.
But they gave us the official release date, which is October 20th.
Nice.
He also confirmed that Eddie Brock is not Venom. So
Ah.
Venom is someone else. And if you play the last 2 games, I feel like everybody has an idea who it could be. But he also mentions that the map has doubled in size, which is interesting. And pre-orders go live on the 12th, and I'm definitely going to be pre-ordering it. And they showed that it comes with different color variations, which was something that was not in the first 2 games. So you'll now be able to change the colors of every costume. And they're probably adding that because I think they said that there would be a black version of every costume when you're playing as Peter when he has the black suit on.
Mm.
So anytime you switch costume, it'll still turn black.
Nice.
But the very last thing they showed, and arguably the biggest, was Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. A
Yeah.
full-on trailer with gameplay and everything. And it's releasing early 2024 on 2 disc. This is a PS5 game that requires 2 disc.
Goodness.
That is insane. Granted, I'm gonna have it digitally, so it's gonna require no disc. But
Right.
for the people who get it physically, that's wild.
I was gonna say I would get it physically just because it has 2 discs.
Yeah,
Like
low key.
when's the last time they used a multiple disc
So
system for a video
I
game?
don't know if it was this. I don't know if it was the same way on PlayStation because I had it on Xbox. But Red Dead Redemption 2 was 2 disc,
Ah.
and I have a good feeling GTA 6 is gonna be 2 disc. Because if Red Dead Redemption 2 is 2 discs, GTA 6 is probably gonna be 3. That game finna be 200 gigabytes.
200 gigs is crazy.
That's wild. They well, I guess this is kind of a spoiler for the segment we're gonna talk about later. But what is it? Xbox announced that they have because with the Xbox Series S, which is the smaller version of their newest console, was like 500 gigabytes only, which is ridiculous. And they announced a black and 1 terabyte version of it. Because I was like, giving somebody a console that has only 500 gigabytes on it in the year of our Lord 2023 is a crime.
Criminal. Yeah.
That is criminal. You should go to jail. Why would you do that? They're going to be able to download like 3 games.
If that.
Imagine if you're the type of person that plays Call of Duty too. That's the whole console.
Right.
Call of Duty nowadays, especially the multiplayer, be taking up like 80 gigabytes. It's ridiculous.
It's like I'm struggling right now with my Switch storage.
See, yeah, I'm not struggling because I spend a lot of money on drives. I have external drive on my Xbox because I haven't filled up the internal drive yet because I don't have as many big games on it as I do on my PlayStation. By PlayStation, I have an internal. I can't remember if it's 2 terabyte or 1 terabyte SSD. which is expensive because it's an SSD. But I also have
Yeah.
a HDD for my PS4 games.
Oh wow. I need to get a better drive for my computer, like my gaming computer. It has two drives in there, and that is still not enough.
Wow, that's
I,
crazy.
games are getting like bigger and bigger, and it's a little scary to me because it's like, how much is too much, you know?
Yeah, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It looks good. I don't have much to say about it because I don't feel like they showed much. So yeah, we'll just have to wait till it happens. It's coming out early next year, which is exactly what they said before. They said winter. Um, they just said winter. That's it. Like I think they announced it earlier this year, and they said winter. And uh, that means that could still be that could have always meant early next year
Right.
because winter is still in those first couple months. So everybody assumed it's obviously going to be later rather than sooner, and they
Right.
officially announced it's going to be later. So yeah, I'm excited for that. The first one and its DLC was real fun. It took me a while to finish it, but once I got towards the end, it was real good. Um, the last two things we're going to talk about are two indie games that were shown at the Future Game Show. The Spirit of the Samurai and Cookie Cutter. So, The Spirit of Samurai is a stop motion side scroller where you fight an army of undead warriors and Japanese monsters, a samurai, a tree spirit, and a cat. Did you check out that trailer?
Did check out the trailer. First of all, I absolutely adore the visual style of this game.
Yes.
I love the stop motion esque, like, I don't know, and I feel like they're going for a sort of like, not horror, but like definitely like very uncanny, kind of spooky ish vibe, and the creaky, like, disjointedness of the stop motion like lends to that so well. In this little itty bitty trailer, this game has built such a unique visual style for itself so quickly, and I am so excited for it.
Yeah, it looks fun. Unfortunately, it's not on console. It's only like on PC. But dang, I want to play that game. This is also on PC. Cookie Cutter, which is a 2D Metroidvania where you play as a revenge-seeking android named Cherry. That also looks real good. Another side scroller
Yeah.
with a very interesting visual style. Which indie games are just good for that. If you want a interesting visual style, play an indie game.
Like,
Like one that I always like when I started really getting into indie games, I think around um the pandemic. Um I think it might have started with Hades, but the one that really I feel like got me in there was Death's Door. Death's Door is so good. It's a game where you play. It's a very Zelda inspired game, and
mm,
there is a no clip documentary about it that I still haven't finished. I've like watched the majority of it, but I still haven't gotten around to watching the rest of it. But it has the music is so good in that game, and it's a like I said, it's like Zelda, and you play as a crow who is essentially collects souls for death.
oh, I've seen this game, but I never knew what it was called.
It's so good. It's so
Looks
good. I
good.
love that game. The very first boss, not the first boss. I think it might have been like the second boss. Annoyed the hell out of
My
me.
lifeblood.
But
And I will sing Blasphemous's praises until Blasphemous 2 comes out and beyond then. That game's visual style is like the perfect example of like what to do with pixel art, because I noticed there's been like a thing on Twitter making fun of like people who are like, oh, pixel art has to be super super detailed or else it's not real pixel art, and that's funny, silly, yada yada. But when it's done well, detailed pixel art looks great. And play Blasphemous, basically.
yeah, I'm getting that's on my list that I'm going to talk about next week. Of like, I'm trying to finish Rondo with Blood and Symphony of the Night before Blasphemous 2 comes out, so that I can start Blasphemous 1 and then eventually get into Blasphemous 2. Okay, now moving on to the Xbox and Bethesda showcase, they opened up with Fable, a sequel to a relatively popular franchise that I don't really know a lot about. Um, Honestly, I know so little about the game. I'm not sure I've ever even seen gameplay of Fable. Like, I'm not really sure what type of game this is. But in the trailer, they did show a little bit of gameplay. Um,
Mm.
and a little bit gameplay they showed was interesting. It's a fantasy RPG, and from the gameplay I saw, it reminds me of The Witcher. Uh,
Oh yeah.
yeah. So if it's anything like The Witcher, I might be interested. I don't really like The Witcher like that, but this could be a more interesting version of that possibly. Um, Apparently, the series is known for its comedic writing, and that's why, um, for this. For well, they had a trailer before another cinematic trailer, but it was nothing like this that actually showed a little bit of gameplay. It was just purely cinematic and was mostly a teaser. But yeah, this looks interesting. You know, they didn't show much, so it's hard to really talk about it.
Yeah, I do like the visual style of the game. It's very nice. It's a gorgeous game.
Yeah, for sure. I feel that the actual in-game graphics look anything like that cinematic, it'll be very beautiful.
Yeah.
They also showed a couple more cinematic trailers. One of them was for South of Midnight from Compulsion Games. It is a fantastical and macabre third-person action-adventure set in the American Deep South. The trailer we saw was in stop motion, and it took place in like a bayou, some type of swamp, with this giant black dude who looked like he was like undead, playing a banjo. And the lady was hunting a monster. So, I mean, that sounds fun. Especially if we can only assume that the art style is going to look just like that. Maybe it won't be what is it? Stop motion? I don't know, because I feel like a lot of people, maybe they'll have an option to turn it off, because I feel like a lot of people like high frame rates, and having it deliberately be a slower frame rate for a stylistic choice a lot of people might not like that. So they should probably at least have the option to turn the frame rate up to something that isn't like 12 frames per second, which it looked like they were doing for the sake of the trailer. Because that looks nice, but like when you're playing a game like what is it, Spider-Man Miles Morales, they have the Spider-Verse suit in there, and they have a you have the ability to have it move in 12 frames per second like it does in a movie, but it's very jarring when everything else around him is moving at 60 frames per second.
Right. Sounds like it.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they actually have an option to turn up the frame rate.
But yeah. I hope so. The game looks really cool.
Not really.
I hope that we get more of it.
Yeah.
I want to see how it plays.
Not much of an indicator of how it plays. Not even any of the press stuff have they really said anything about how it's going to play, other than that it's an action adventure game. So, they showed off a cinematic trailer for Star Wars Outlaw. But we saw actual gameplay at the Ubisoft Forward, so we'll get to that later. 33 Immortals. So I've watched a lot of reactions to the Xbox Showcase, and every time people are completely taken aback by the fact that this game supports 33 players.
I definitely was. I was like, 33 I don't even know 33 people to do 33 player co-op.
Exactly. So I went to Xbox's blog to learn more about this game, and I became even more interested in it than I already was, because just to set the stage, it's kind of like Hades, but set in the world of Dante's Divine Comedy.
Ooh.
So you play as a soul in the afterlife, condemned to eternal punishment, who rebels against their fate, risking the wrath of God in the process, and gets help from the characters of the Divine Comedy. And that sounds very much like Hades in concept.
Yeah.
And yeah, even the menus that they showed glimpses of in the blog were very reminiscent of Hades. So I feel like this studio might have taken some inspiration from Supergiant in making this game.
Which is exciting, because Hades is a fantastic game.
Yeah. But I can't imagine how many people are going to have all 33 players unless they're doing like, playing with randoms.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It's gonna be like an online co-op situation, and that's what I'm hoping, because it's like, if I have to go out into the world and find 33 other people to play this game with in order to get like the full experience, in air quotes, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure they have the option for you to just play with random people.
Yeah.
And hopefully, like, the game's built in a way to where, like, if you do play with random people, they can't like impede your progress, or somehow like they can't mess up your playthrough.
Yeah.
But something that they showed that I didn't actually send to you because you've already seen it because it was leaked was, this is where they were supposed to announce Persona 3 Reloaded.
Yeah.
Or is it just Reload?
It's Persona 3 Reload, yeah.
Yeah, okay. This is where they were supposed to announce it. And they announced several Sega things in this. I guess Xbox just has a deal with Sega. Actually, they do, because I think, all of the Persona games are on Game Pass. 3, 4, 5, and Royal are on Game Pass currently. And also, like, I think all of the Yakuza games. So I think Xbox just has a deal with Sega because
Yep.
they announced several Sega games at this conference. But yeah, I guess this is where we get to talk about it. Um, like I
Yay!
said, it was unfortunately leaked, which leaks suck. Sometimes it can be interesting for us, but for the people who worked on it, that sucks.
Yeah,
um,
people keep posting on Twitter about the poor Atlas intern.
yeah,
that there's been more leaks actually for Persona 3 Reload, surprisingly, beyond like just the trailer and everything. I can't remember what, like, there's been like gameplay leaks already, and it's
wow,
just like this whole announcement was a mess. But I
that's
am very excited for it. They're recasting the voice cast completely though.
I didn't know that.
So Yuri Lowenthal will not be reprising his
Oh,
role
actually,
as the
no,
protagonist.
I
Huh?
didn't. I didn't know that because I followed Yuri Lowenthal on Twitter, and he said like he was congratulating the person who is voicing the main character, which I think is Alex Lee, who's
It
been
is Alex Lee.
yeah,
Yeah.
who's been becoming a very big voice actor. He plays Luke, one of the new characters in Street Fighter Six.
Oh wow. Yeah, it's sad to see Persona 3's original voice cast go, but only because I'm so familiar with it. If I'm to be honest, I think this is a good change because Persona 3's original dub is questionable. And then that also, because one of the voice actors in the original Persona 3 is a creep. So
He
I'm glad. Yeah, that
honestly,
they're doing
that's
that.
unfortunately that's not surprising. Um,
Yeah,
what is it? I know a lot of people were afraid that they were going to remove the fact that you like the characters shoot themselves in the head, but from the very brief trailer I saw, they literally have a character sitting there with a gun pointed to their head. So I'm like, yeah, no, they didn't remove that.
yeah, yeah.
Still there.
It's
Um,
called Persona 3 Reload. I mean,
you're right. I didn't even take. Oh my god, I didn't even catch on to that.
yeah, I don't think they're going to be straying away from the gun and suicide imagery at all. But that's because it's very important lore wise.
Yeah.
For
Also,
Persona 3.
also don't think that it's like something that needs to be censored. Really, like,
No, it's really not. It's
um,
very tame, things considered.
yeah, yeah. But I've told you, it doesn't look very visually interesting to me. Um, enough for me to want to really play it, but I'll probably watch some people play it. Who knows? Maybe I hear a review that actually makes me want to play it. Also, maybe it's on Game Pass. I don't know if it's going to be on Game Pass or not, but if it is,
It'll be on
maybe
Game Pass.
you said
It'll
what?
be on Game Pass.
Oh, well
It'll be
then
on Game Pass. Yep.
I'll probably just check it out anyway.
Yeah. Might
Yeah.
as well. Have nothing to lose. I will say, if it's going to be as like close to the original P3 as possible, it's going to be a long game. Like, you think Persona 5 is
Oh no,
long?
I know.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Pretty
another
bad.
reason I'm hesitant to play it. Because I'm just like, if I play it, I'm not gonna finish it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
If I
A lot
play
of
it,
people
I'm
are
not gonna finish
very upset that they're not including Persona 3 FES or Persona 3 Portable content, namely the female protagonist from Persona 3 Portable. Frankly, what I think Atlas is going to do is they're going to include it as DLC because it's Atlas, and
it. Or they're gonna pull the classic Atlas Persona thing and release Persona 3 Reloaded Ultimate Super Mega Buster Edition that
no,
has
for
everything in it.
real.
That means it's not DLC. If you want to get the full experience, you have to play through the entire game again, but with an
And
extra 100 hours added onto the game time. Ridiculous. I hate that business practice. Please stop, Atlas.
I hate it. It's awful.
Just give us regular DLC.
Please. It's not hard.
DLC that's just you buying the same game again, but it's even longer and you have to play it from the beginning again is ridiculous. I hate that. Like, I would prefer they take an extra 3 years to make a game and release that. Like, I wish Persona 5 would have released as the Royal version and came out like the same year that Royal came out rather than coming out in like 2017 in the US like it did. But yeah,
Right.
this looks fun.
And it doesn't help. It doesn't help that P5's development was rushed. Like,
It turned out pretty
not a
good
good look.
to have been rushed, but that's just a
It did.
classic Japanese thing to overwork their employees.
Yeah, they cut a lot of stuff. It's a whole
It's
thing.
wild that they cut a lot of stuff in that. Well, that's probably a lot of stuff they cut. They probably added into Royal.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, Hellblade 2, Senua Saga. Haven't played the first, but I've watched reviews a while back, and I just don't get what this game is. And this trailer, like, if you're going to go watch a trailer to find out what this game is, it's just not happening. No matter what you do, you won't understand what this game is unless you play it. and I have it in like because it's an Xbox exclusive, so it's on Game Pass, and I have it
Right.
in like my play later or whatever to eventually check out. Um, and I'll probably get to it around to it eventually, but I don't know what this is, and I don't think I'm gonna know until I play the game. It's reminding me of like those back when Death Stranding was first on its press tour, and they were just showing trailers, and every trailer just had you more confused about what this game was until we finally saw gameplay, or actually until the game came out, we didn't know what that game was.
I was about to say, I'm gonna be so real. Death Stranding's been out for how many years, and I still don't understand what that game is or about. I just know that Norman Reedus is in it.
Yeah, shout out to Kojima and his weirdness. Uh, but yeah, Sega and Atlas still milking Persona for everything they can with Persona 5 Tactica, a strategy game. They just won't let
Yay.
it go. The only positive I have for them continually making Persona 5 games is that we get more music from Lynn.
Yeah,
Every
that's the
single
only
time.
upside.
That's the positive. Every time it happens, I straight hop onto YouTube Music and listen to the soundtrack. Because we're always
No,
going to
for
get some,
real.
some new bangers from Lynn, and I forget what the name of the composer is.
I think Shoji Meguro, something like that.
Yeah, I think so. But we also.
But
Yeah, go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say I'm already not really interested in tactics games,
Yeah, me
and
neither.
I'm very tired of Persona 5. I'm like, you announced Persona 6, start working on Persona
It
6,
did?
please. They did. For the 25th anniversary of the Persona series, which was like last year, I want to say, they announced that work was being done on a completely new Persona game, unrelated to 5. But that's all we heard about that. So
Cool,
I'm
cool, cool.
like, it's in the works.
But you know
Let's
me,
get some information about that.
I'm gonna need confirmation from them firsthand on whether or not they're gonna do a royal edition of that game before I even think about buying it.
You know, Atlas, they're going to.
Because if they are, I'm gonna just wait the extra years. I don't care.
Yeah,
I'll get
it's like
spoiled. I don't care.
spoilers for a
And
Persona
the thing
game.
is, I can't get spoiled because the royal version is gonna add another 100 hours of stuff that nobody's seen before anyway.
Right, and it's like spoilers for like Persona games are so low stakes. It's
Yeah.
modern Persona games, I'll say,
The
but
next,
they're just so low stakes. It doesn't matter at the end of the day.
I'll attempt to complete, even if it takes me years, the next Persona game. If it even interests me, which I have a feeling away because I don't see them. We'll get to it later. They announced another game, Atlas, but if they stick with the visual style that they've transferred onto Persona 3 and are sticking to with their new game, then it's gonna interest me most likely. But we'll get to that
Right.
later. Um, we also saw Jasant, which is a rock climbing game by Don't Nod. Uh, Jasant has no dialogue and tells its story through the environment, similar to something like Journey.
I was just about to say, sounds
Yeah.
like Journey. Ooh.
So you'll start out at the bottom of this immeasurably tall tower, surrounded by arid land and desolate plains. What is this place in the middle of nowhere? What is its purpose? Who lived here and how? The answers may lie atop the tower, intriguing enough for you, the climber, to take on the challenge of reaching the peak. My Uncharted loving heart is interested. And honestly, this is the kind of stuff I want to see from a future Uncharted game. I want a more involved climbing system that requires you to do more than just push up, left, or right on the controller and occasionally press X to jump. I want a more involved climbing system in an Uncharted game. I feel like that'd be real fun.
That would be fun.
But after that is Dungeons of Hinterberg.
Mm.
Uh, the website describes it as a big tourism industry has sprung up around the village of Hinterberg, and its magical dungeons full of monsters and alpine mythical creatures. Dungeons of Hinterberg is an adventure RPG set around this new tourist hotspot in idyllic Austrian Alps. Armed with a sword and a tourist guide, explore the beautiful surroundings and uncover the challenges hidden within its dungeons. Master magic, solve puzzles, slay monsters, and build relationships. All this and more await you in Hinterberg. This is remarkably similar to an idea I have for a Zelda game that stars Zelda herself. And seeing it, I'm like, I'm gonna just steal these ideas and repurpose them because it's definitely taking. I'm definitely like seeing it and going, I can see how I could use these in this idea I have that could potentially be its own thing. I'll probably tell you off recording what it is, but I think it's interesting because we need a Zelda game that just stars Zelda. And
Yeah,
my and
it is.
my idea is that they call it they don't call it The Legend of Zelda. They actually call it The Adventures of Zelda.
Mm.
and it's a start of a whole new series where Zelda is the main character and not Link.
That would be fun. Like they, this is not a good example, but like what they did with Super Princess Peach, which is a game I actually enjoy. I don't care
Yeah, I
that
was gonna
people
say
say it's bad.
from I've actually watched somebody play that game recently. That game looks cool.
It was a very cool game, and I'm sad that it got the flack that it did when it released because it's actually very neat.
What kind of flack did it get?
Oh, people were like, "Oh, this game looks dumb. It doesn't play well," and most of that was because it was starring Peach. And it's like, "Oh, it's a dumb girly game for dumb girl gamers," and it's just like it was in that era
It was that type of
of
stuff. That was definitely that.
yeah,
Would that come out like early 2000s?
yep,
Yeah, that makes sense. That's stupid.
yeah, very stupid. I like that game
But
a
yeah,
lot.
Dungeons Hinterberg looks fun. It definitely has some Zelda inspiration in there. That's why why I saw it
I
and
like
really
the
thought
style.
of that.
I like. Oh, go ahead.
No, you can go.
I was gonna say I like the style and I like the concept, but I don't know if this is gonna be a game that I'd play. It's interesting, and I do definitely see the Zelda influence, but it's just like it feels kind of generic to me, low
Yeah,
key.
I mentioned in our Gamefest section about how towards the end I actually was just editing it. I talked about it at the very end about how I got more into indie games during the pandemic, and most of that was due to Xbox because of Game Pass. And the reason I finally played Hades, despite the fact that it always interested me visually, but I wasn't sure if I would like the gameplay, and I ended up loving it, was because it was on Game Pass. But then eventually
Mm,
they took it off Game Pass, and I was just like, well, I'm just gonna buy it so I can continue playing it. Um,
right.
and that's well, Death's Door wasn't on Game Pass, but at that point I was already just getting into indie games, so I was just like, I'm just gonna buy this game because it was an indie game and also didn't cost that much.
Right.
And yeah, this is another one. This is an indie game that I believe is going to be on Game Pass. So uh, I'll probably end up checking it out. Even if it's not on Game Pass, if it gets good reviews similar to Death's Door, I'll probably just buy it and check it out. You know, support some indie artists.
Yeah,
It looks
I'll
like a
probably
fun
give
game.
it a shot.
The only thing that bothers me is the art style kind of hurts my eyes.
Yeah, that was my biggest
The,
thing, and like
the,
my biggest hesitance with it.
I
It's
feel
like
like I
it's
would
a
get a
very
headache playing it.
yeah, it's a very cool looking game, but I don't know.
The colors clash and the outlines kind of. I don't know. It's just hard to look at, but I don't know. I'll have to watch the trailer again and see if I still feel that way.
Yeah, I hope that if like because I feel like that's gonna be like a big problem. It's cool in the trailer, but like in testing, and I hope they like take a look at that objectively and maybe fix it up a little bit.
Yeah. So the next thing we saw was Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty. Um, I need to pull something up real quick.
Right?
These notes are long. I got to scroll forever to find what I'm looking for. Uh,
No worries.
all right, here we go. So, it's described on the Xbox blog as V, still stricken with the relic chips slowly eating them away, is whipped into a conspiracy with shadowy elements of the all-new Pacifica combat zone, vying to kill off the President of the United States. V is guided by a new character, Songbird, who appears to have as much access to their head as Johnny Silverhand, phasing in and out of view as she helps them. CD Projekt Red has promised a full spy thriller in Phantom Liberty. So, I made a change, like at the beginning when I was copying this and editing it down to for me to read here. And something that I hate that I do is that this game, right, it gives you the ability to create your character. They can be whatever gender you want them to be, but for some reason they kept using the word. They kept calling them him, and I don't know if you kept hearing me stutter whenever I started to right before I said a pronoun because I had to kept seeing him and say them because I was like the character. First off, the version of the character that they showed in the trailer was a woman,
Right? Like,
but in the
huh?
but in the article they're saying him, and I'm like, just like some people, and I get times are changing. It's going to take people some time to get used to it, but people need to just get used to not immediately gendering a person and just saying them. It's
Right.
easy. It's not hard. It's very easy to just say them, and you just got to burn that into your head that to use them until you know otherwise that you can use something else.
Exactly.
It's really not that hard. It just takes
Very.
some time to get used to it, and it's okay to make mistakes along the way.
Yeah.
But anyway, sidetracked. Idris Elba appears in this game as a new
Oh
character
wow.
named Solomon Reed. They're just really stacking on the star-studded cast with this one, with Johnny Silverhand being played by Keanu Reeves, and
For real.
he returns of course because he's like a not a figment of the character's imagination, but he like digitized himself. He was a rock star in universe in the game who like digitized himself, and the main character has him in their head. Um, yeah, so Susie Hunter on Twitter says that a lot of improvements and changes have been made to the game's core system. Based on that, this DLC might be a hint at what's to come for the second game, which was announced. They're making another one. And hopefully this time they're allowed to actually work at a healthy pace and implement all the
Yeah.
features that they couldn't before. But some of the things that Susie says they added is um, like a new leveling system that's much more skill based. Um, you you've seen Edge Runners, right?
Yeah.
Right. So like a big part of that story is like how the main character is like using too much like mechanical parts in their body.
Mm.
So you like that's a like an actual system in the game where if you get too much like cyberware, you can like start to decrease your health bar, which is very interesting.
Oh, that is really interesting.
Yeah, and apparently they just made like small improvements to like combat and things like that. So it sounds like this is like their first step to like actually improving this game and making it. I feel like the sequel to this game is going to be less of a improving on the ideas they already made and more so them just incorporating everything that they wanted to do in the first place.
Mm,
But yeah, it releases 9/26/2023.
nice.
So here's the new Atlas game made by the people that brought us Persona 3, 4, and 5, Metaphor Refantasia. Um, it is described as a kingdom fraught with unsettling mystery and a fantasy world unlike anything you've seen before. Trailer showed a mixture of turn-based RPG gameplay and over-the-top cinematics, which shared the visual style of the past few Persona games, but with a high fantasy bend. I wasn't sure how I felt about it at first, but after seeing it several times, it looks really cool, and it could potentially be the next big Atlas game I play as I wait for Persona 6 or Persona 6 Royal.
Personally, I'm like, why bother to? I don't know. I feel strange about it because it looks so similar to how Persona plays and all that stuff. But I think I would just have to see more. Well, no, it's not Persona X esque, more Shin Megami Tensei esque, and it's
Yeah,
like,
it's
like
kind of like a combo of both.
yeah, it's like you went through all this hullabaloo. It's like, oh, it's a completely new game, only to return to the exact same formula you've been doing for years. I don't know. I just have to see more of it, I think.
All the menus shown in the trailer look so cool.
They do. They
They
look very good.
they're just so good at UI design. It's great. Um, Next up is Clockwork Revolution. This is a fantastical first-person action RPG with dynamic time-bending combat, deep interconnected role-playing systems, and the ability to create your own unique character from the ground up. Clockwork Revolution takes place in the vibrant Victorian-era metropolis of Avalon, where steam trains fly overhead, wealthy industrialists replace their limbs with ornate clockwork prosthetics, and mechanical servants fulfill their masters' every whim. There's this one shot in the trailer where there's this robot pulling a carpet that's spinning like on a treadmill
Mm,
and moving across the sidewalk while the person on top of it is walking, which which was really funny to me. Um,
very funny.
yeah, but this new age of wonders holds a dark secret. It's been carefully constructed by the ruthless Lady Ironwood. Through use of a
Mm,
time travel device, she's changed key moments in Avalon's history, keeping the working class struggling in the slums and factories while bringing herself immense wealth and power. That's where you come in. This is very reminiscent of the Bioshock games.
I was about to say it felt very Bioshock esque watching the trailer, which is not a bad thing.
No, not by any means. Another of many immersive sims. I like me a good immersive sim. I still have to play the Bioshock games. I haven't played any of them, but I did purchase them on Xbox, and I gotta add them to my list and figure out when I'm gonna actually fit them into my schedule of trying to finish a lot of these games I got in my backlog.
Gotcha, gotcha.
But last but not least, for Xbox, we do have two more showcases after this: the Ubisoft Forward, and then literally just one game from the Capcom Showcase because they didn't show a lot of new stuff. Um,
Mm,
we're gonna end Xbox with Starfield. So you didn't get a chance to check out the 45-minute video because it's 45 minutes, and
right.
I sent you a lot of other videos that probably already took like an hour to watch. So yeah, we got an in-depth look at Starfield, and I'm not gonna lie, it looks good. I'm cautiously optimistic where before I was downright skeptical. Um,
Mm,
they showed a lot because, like I said, 45 minutes. They really took their time to show us like why we should be a little bit more hopeful because they know people were concerned, and also this game comes out September 6th, so you got to show something. It comes out
Right.
relatively soon. So we got to look at the overarching plot of the game, the character customization, ship combat, base building on planets, the skill system, and a lot more. What excites me the most is the combat, both on the ground and in the ships. And you watched the trailer.
Yeah,
What did you
I
think of
did.
that?
I thought it was neat. Very good looking game. The 35 years in the making thing surprised me like
Well,
heavily.
it's not that they've been working on this game that whole time. It's that at some point they knew that they wanted to make a space game,
Mm.
and that this is their first new IP since in
Oh,
35
okay.
years. This is literally their first new IP. They've been up until now, or up until whenever they started working on this game, which was probably 10 years ago, based on how big this game is. Um, they had only been working on Elder Scroll and Fallout.
That makes sense. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. I was like, 35 years in development, it's only just coming out now? That's
Yeah,
absurd.
this is their first new IP in 35 years, which is crazy.
That's a whole different kind of absurd.
Yeah, but what did you know about this game before you checked out that trailer? Or did you see any
I'd never
trailers
heard of
before
it,
that?
to be
Really?
honest.
You've
Really.
how did you never hear about this?
I have no clue. I've never heard of this game before today, or well, when you
Yeah,
sent me the trailer.
that's wow. Okay, yeah. Eventually, you're gonna have to maybe before next episode try and check out those 45 minutes. It might you might see something you like in there. But
I will.
um, yeah. So since you know nothing, I thought you would know a little bit, but I'm gonna tell you the stuff that made everybody skeptical. So they showed us a little
Okay.
bit. They showed us some trailers. They showed us a tiny bit of combat before, and it didn't look that good. It looks good in what they showed a couple days ago, but people, were concerned, and the biggest reason people were concerned is the same reason people were concerned about No Man's Sky, because this game
Mm.
is supposed to have over 1,000 planets you can visit,
Oh,
and
okay.
that's a lot. And you might be asking yourself the question, why 1,000? Why not like 1,000's a lot? Like even 100, I feel like would have been enough.
Yeah.
Let alone you could have done a single solar system and just really focused on making each individual planet in that solar system interesting versus trying to make 1,000 planets. That's my thought process. It's like, but then I sort of thought about it a little bit more. I'm still not a big fan of 1,000 planet things, and I don't even think 100 would be. I think that would be too much. But I
Mm.
understand doing multiple solar systems though, because even within one solar system, you would still get a sense of adventure and being able to fly your ship around space and stuff. But I feel like it's you to truly get that feeling of space adventure or of something like Star Wars. Having multiple solar systems makes sense. It's just a
Right.
matter that they decided to do over 1,000 that I think is just a weird arbitrary number that was unnecessary, and they could have
Yeah.
literally done like I don't know 20.
And even then, that's kind of pushing it.
They could have done 20 planets and like actually put work to make each of those planets very interesting and unique on their own, and that would have been fine. That would have been perfectly fine. That would have been more than enough. I don't know, understand why they did 1,000, and you know what that means? A lot of them are going to be boring.
Yeah.
But here's why I'm not as concerned about that as I was before, because the game gives you so much freedom that it feels like you can go out of your way to just ignore the parts that you think are boring. If you're into No Man's Sky and the idea of going to planets and mining, which is something you can do in this game, is interesting, you have the ability to do that. But if that's something you're not interested in at all, like me, despite the fact that there are thousands of planets, they do actually have hand built, handcrafted, like main planets and main space stations that they built to be like these more populated areas. Like one of them is this city called New Atlantis on one of the main human settlements. That is, they say, is the biggest city they've ever made, and they have several other cities like that. So they still have like around five or so major cities and planets that you can explore, and I'm probably going to stick to those as well as like space stations. And my goal is this is probably going to be the first role playing game that I actually play, like actually role play as a character of my own creation. Because I feel like in most role
Mm.
playing games, I kind of just stick to the story. I don't like put myself into the role of this interesting character. Like I don't play it like it's D&D. You know what I mean? Um,
Right.
I just play it like it's because I'm used to playing story focused video games that have defined characters. Um, but this one is so open that I'm probably gonna actually go out of my way to just role play. And
Ooh,
I'm
nice.
yeah, my plan is to be a bounty hunter. I want to get to the action. I'm gonna make a stealth build where I just got a sniper rifle and a pistol with silencer and a knife, and I'm going around assassinating people for money. And I'm gonna make a small but really fast ship with powerful guns, and that is gonna be how I play the game. Um, and yeah, it looks good. The skill system looks fun. The character creation, it's all right. It doesn't look very special, but there's this really interesting way that you create towards the end of the character creation where you choose like personality traits kind of that actually affect interactions with characters in the game, which is really interesting. It's hard for me to explain. You'd have to just see it to find out, but I think this game looks amazing. um like it's very open. It just like that's their goal, is to literally just allow you to do anything you want. When it comes to the space combat, they showed that it isn't just as simple as flying around and shooting. You actually have to manage certain systems in the game on your ship, and that may sound a little complicated, but it's not as complicated as it sounds. It's like you have to allocate power to different parts of the ship, like
Oh wow.
adding more power to your whatever they call it, that allows you to like similar to like go light speed to other planets and stuff. Your hyperdrive is what I'm gonna call it. You you can turn that up so that it decreases the amount of time before it's ready for you to jump, so you can escape situations. Or of course you can turn up the energy on your shields or your weapons and things like that. And you can also unlock a skill that allows you to target individual like ship parts on the people that you're shooting. So like you can destroy their shields completely, and it's just
Nice.
it looks real cool. And like I oh wait, no, you weren't at our meeting on Monday, but I was taking a little bit of inspiration from the UI of Starfield and the design I was doing for the local type thing that we're doing,
Right.
or vocal type I meant to say. And it's they describe it, the way they describe it I think is weird and not wholly accurate. They call it NASA punk, and I think adding the word punk in there is just wrong, because
It doesn't.
nothing about it is punk, but it is very NASA, and they take a lot of inspiration from like 60s NASA and like
Ah.
the design of everything, and they make everything look super analog despite the fact that this is in the future. And yeah, you can also have like recruit people to run your ship. So my goal is to try to be a loner as long as possible, and maybe get like one or two crew members, like a
Gotcha.
small crew. Like I feel like I'm gonna have fun with this game. I hope it's good. I really do. I don't want to
That
be
sounds
disappointed
like
in this game. And it's gonna be on Game Pass. Again, every time I say that, it's like Game Pass. It's no reason for me not to check it out.
right.
But yeah, that's all I have to say about Starfield. If you have nothing,
Yeah. I'm interested though. I'm definitely gonna watch that 45-minute thingy thing a little
yeah.
later.
So moving on to the Ubisoft Forward. I didn't get the chance to check this one out live, but they started off with Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. So it's set after the events of the first Avatar film. You'll embark on a journey across the western frontier, a never-before-seen continent of Pandora, as you join other Na'vi clans to protect Pandora from the formidable forces of the RDA. Um, so it's actually a first-person game, and I was not expecting that, and I was kind of disappointed.
Hmm.
But it does become third-person when you mount animals, which the mounting animals looks cool. Like I forget what they call it, but the animal that flies around, um, like riding that looks fun. But also, it is a very pretty game. Like the world of Pandora from the Avatar is a very beautiful world, and
Yeah.
I feel like they definitely do it justice in this trailer. But for the most part, it looks like your standard Ubisoft open world, but in the Avatar universe. Um,
Hmm.
and I like bows and arrows in games, so the idea of using a bow and arrow is always fun to me. But
Right.
I really could not have cared less about this game when they showed the announcement trailer a few years back, because it didn't look good, and now it looks slightly better, but not enough for me to really want to play it. But I felt like it was worth talking about. What were your thoughts on it?
I've never really been big into the Avatar franchise, if I'm to be real. So I it's a good looking game. It's just like not. It's not for me.
Yeah. So moving on to Prince of Persia. Uh, Dash into a stylish and thrilling action adventure platformer set in a mythological Persia, where the boundaries of time and space are yours to manipulate. Play as Sargon and evolve from sword wielding prodigy to extraordinary legend as you master acrobatic combat and unlock new time powers and unique super abilities. I don't know if you know this, but Prince of Persia was originally a 2D platformer.
I
So,
do know that.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is a return to form. Um, and time powers are back naturally because it's like one of the most famous features of the franchise. Uh,
Right.
this releases January 18th next year, and it looks real fun. It looks like just a fun 2D platformer with some really good action. The boss fights look amazing.
Hmm.
It reminds me a lot of Metroid Dread in a lot of ways, but I don't think it's a Metroidvania. It's just regular old 2D action platformer.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
It looks real fun, or maybe I don't think it's a Metroidvania, but maybe it is because I feel like if it was, they would have said that.
Said something about it. Yeah.
But we'll see. Uh, Captain Laserhawk, a Blood Dragon remix. So this is an animated series for Netflix produced by Randy Shankar, who I said Randy, I meant Andy, who produced the Castlevania series on Netflix.
Oh, nice.
It's inspired by Far Cry 3 DLC Blood Dragon, and it's starring various Ubisoft characters.
Ooh.
Um, and it's not what I expected it to be. So the series is set in an alternative 1992 in the country formerly known as the USA, now called Eden. It is a a technocracy ruled by propaganda and corruption. Super soldier Dolph Laserhawk has just been betrayed by the love of his life and locked up in Eden's top secret prison, Supermax. He must now lead a team of rebel outcasts on risky undercover missions in order to survive. There is a frog Ezio Auditore from Assassin's Creed, and it's weird. This show is not what I thought it was, because it's based off the DLC from Far Cry 3 called Blood Dragon, which was just
Right.
like super like futuristic, very like 80s inspired action type thing. And this is that, but kinda not really. Also, it's weird. It's not what I expected at all, but it does look fun. So I'll definitely check it out when it eventually does come out, which is sometime this fall.
Ooh, nice.
It looks fun, but not necessarily what I thought. Dolph Laserhawk is a wild name.
Absolutely
Obviously
insane.
based off Dolph Lundgren, but like, it's funny.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking of Frog Ezio, Assassin's Creed Mirage. So, Mirage is meant to be a return to the style of the original Assassin's Creed games,
Right.
with fewer RPG elements and more focused on parkour, stealth, and assassinations. And so far, it does look to be doing just that. The gameplay walkthrough showed Basim running and climbing his way through the city while using tools like a blow dart and smoke bombs to dispatch enemies as cleanly as possible. It comes out October 13th. I really do hope it looks way less RPG-ish, and because of that, it does look very interesting. Uh,
Hmm.
so, last but not least, for Ubisoft Forward, Star Wars Outlaws. Did you check out the
I did.
gameplay? Yeah, because I was like,
I did.
I'm pretty sure I sent it to you, but so this game is set between the events of The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. Explore distinct planets across the galaxy, both iconic and new. Risk it all as Kay Vess, a scoundrel seeking freedom and the means to start a new life, along with her companion Nyx. Fight steel and outwit your way through the galaxy's crime syndicates as you join the galaxy's most wanted. Uh, this looks fun. Um,
Does.
not gonna lie, the first time I watched it, I actually wasn't feeling it, but after watching it a couple more times, I like it a lot more. I think at the first I just was kind of taken aback because it wasn't what I thought it was gonna be.
Right.
Because it's made by Ubisoft, but it's made by the team that made the Division 2. And
Oh.
because it was made by Ubisoft, I was honestly expecting more of an RPG style similar to their most recent Assassin's Creed and Far Cry games. And I've always said I'm not the biggest fan. Like I was just talking about how I want Assassin's Creed to return to something similar to what it used to be. I'm not the biggest fan
Right.
of the RPG Assassin's Creed games, but you literally take every single thing about that game, you leave it the exact same gameplay wise and all of that, but you make it Star Wars, and I would 100% that game. I would play every single second of it. I would go through all of it. I would do every side quest. I would unlock every trophy. I would do everything in that game. Um, and that's what I was expecting. So seeing this kind of threw me off. But especially since it's more a story focused and character focused single player game, um, it was a pleasant surprise. It is also open world.
Ooh.
Off top, it gave me an Uncharted vibe with the attempt at doing stealth that immediately devolves into a gunfight. Uh,
Right.
it has shades of the, I don't know if you've heard of it, but the canceled Star Wars game by the Uncharted director that
Hmm.
was titled 1313. There was actually a gameplay trailer of that game up on YouTube. It was it was gonna happen, but it got canceled for whatever reason.
Oh darn.
Yeah, so after the gunfight, the main character Kay hops on a speeder to escape and uses a move very similar to the Deadeye from Red Dead Redemption 2, where you slow down time and target enemies, and then the game like auto fires on them. And this led me down the path of noticing all of the Red Dead vibes that this game has. And
Hmm.
it's of course called Star Wars Outlaw. So basically, you're kind of just playing a cowgirl. Uh,
Ooh.
as Kay returns to town, it says that her reputation with the Pikes has gone down, and her robot friend Nix, says like, I guess we're not working with the Pikes anytime soon, and it like because she got caught, so I assume there was a cutscene that played like right before she got caught, so I don't know if that
Hmm.
was like the story, that was like a story moment, but I assume that like you'll be able to actually get through situations like that fully stealthily and without the that crime syndicate finding out that it was you who did it, so that you're still in good standings with them, and that'll be
Ooh.
a core mechanic of the game, of you kind of like working and kind of betraying but trying to keep it a secret. These various crime syndicates and trying to make your way up in the underworld.
Sounds exciting.
Um, yeah, it kind of reminds me of the morality system from Red Dead. And there's also a moment where a big red wanted flashes on screen, and that definitely reminds me of Red Dead. Because in Red Dead, if you do some criminal activity, you can be wanted in certain areas on the map, and whenever you go back there, you can like pay to get the to no longer be wanted. But if you don't do that, whenever you go there, anytime somebody sees you, they'll run to go tell the police, or if the police see you, they'll start shooting you.
Hmm.
And bounty hunters will come after you, and it seems like they're doing something like that in this game. So I think that this game is just taking a lot of inspiration from Red Dead. The Reaction YouTube channel I watch all the time and constantly talk about, Blind Wave. They're big Star Wars nerds. Some of the biggest Star Wars nerds I've ever seen on YouTube, honestly. One of them was actually in a very popular like Star Wars trivia show. And that's like how big of Star Wars nerds they are. And they were reacting to it, and they kept comparing it to GTA, and I was like, I know why they're comparing it to GTA, and it's because none of them have played Red Dead Redemption. And I was like, if they play Red Dead Redemption, they would know, which is made by the same people that made GTA. They would know that this is way more similar to Red Dead Redemption than it is GTA. And yeah, it looks good. Something that surprised me that I wasn't expecting was that you can fly your ship. You can use it to travel between planets and get into dogfights and shoot down some Tie fighters. The UI, we're just talking about UI a lot in this episode. The UI looks great. Like when she completed the mission and she was flying in space and it said like mission complete, they're really leaning into the Star Wars logo and that typeface, and it just looks really cool. And the colors, the yellow and kind of like sky blue, just work really well together.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, any thoughts?
You know me. I love a good space. It definitely gives very like space western vibes, and you know me. I love a good space western. So, despite me not knowing much about Star Wars, I might actually play this game.
Yeah, looks fun. So
Yeah.
moving into the Capcom Showcase, we're only going to talk about one thing because they just kept showing a lot of stuff that we've seen before. This was a weird Capcom Showcase because they were literally showing us trailers of Capcom games that were shown at other things, but not giving us any new information, just showing the same trailer again. It was weird. But
Yeah, a lot of people said that the Capcom showcase like sucked.
yeah, it was easily the worst. Oh, I forgot to mention off top. Xbox Showcase was so much better than PlayStation Showcase. PlayStation, step
Oh
your game
yeah.
up. It was significantly better. They were just showing bangers after bangers. PlayStation, get your life together. Um, but Capcom's easily the worst. Pragmata. This was a game that was announced at a PlayStation Showcase years ago. Maybe I think it was literally the same showcase where they announced the PlayStation 5. Not announced, but like showed off the actual like how it looks and when it was coming out. Um, and it was just a cinematic showing like this person in space, and
Mm.
we finally got an actual trailer that shows just a tiny bit of gameplay and telling us, hey, we don't know when this game is coming out. And I felt like it's so weird. So when you watch the trailer, were you also like, why should I care about the fact that this is being delayed, and why are they being so
Definitely.
like, because like I knew about this game, but like why would anybody be upset about a game that we know literally nothing about being delayed? It's not
Right.
like this. It's not like this is a long-awaited sequel to something. This is a brand new IP from Capcom. This is like we literally just don't know what it is for you to be apologizing to us in such a delicate manner. Like we've all been waiting for so long, and that we're all disappointed. We don't care because we don't know what it is.
Right.
So you can literally, this game cannot come out for 10 years and we don't care because we don't know what the game is. And they showed us a little bit of gameplay. It looks like it's a like a character action game. Like it looked like one of the characters had a sword and a gun or something like that. And there's a little girl that the character has to protect, which is
Yeah.
a trend in I feel like games, you know. But
It felt like playing Bioshock, but like as a big daddy instead of instead of the protagonist of
I
Bioshock,
mean
which is
that's
me.
literally Bioshock 2.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah,
See.
Bioshock 2 you play the big daddy.
Yeah, I've played the first Bioshock and the third Bioshock. Still haven't gotten around to 2. It's on my list though.
Yeah, it's giving Kojima vibes of them just like not telling us
Yeah.
anything. Like we don't know what this is, and literally, like I talked about with that other game, them showing us a little bit of gameplay honestly just made me more confused. Because at least when I knew nothing, I knew nothing. Now I know something and I don't know what it is.
Right.
And I'm confused. Before I wasn't confused. I was just interested. Now I'm just confused. This is a very weird way to tell us that you're delaying a game. You could have just said, honestly, with what they showed us, I feel like they could have showed us a little bit more gameplay.
Definitely.
And then said, we don't know when it's coming out, and just moved on rather than being really weird and solemn about it.
Mm-hmm.
But to wrap things up, as we approach the 50-minute mark, there was like this pre-release event for Final Fantasy 16, and I knew this was gonna happen because it was rumored that was gonna happen. And they released a Final Fantasy 16 demo.
Ooh.
And for the sake of the podcast, I played it last night, and I played the rest of it this morning. Oh my god! So, like because by the time the next time we record, the game will be out, and it will have had been out for a week. I decided to play the demo real quick, and so we could talk about this podcast. And there were two parts to the demo. One was literally like the first 3 hours of the game, like the first chapter, and the other took place a little further into the story. But both of these demos were demos that press had gotten a chance to play within the last year or so and had talked about in their previews that I've been discussing over the last few months in the podcast. So this is stuff that we've heard about before but never seen or played, of course. And the one that covers the first chapter of the game actually allows you to save your data so that if you buy the game next week, you can actually continue where you left off rather than having to play the whole 3 hours again, which I was afraid of. Like when I was going in, I was like, I hope it's not the first 3 hours because I hope it's not the beginning of the game because I don't want to have to replay the beginning of the game when the game comes out. But then when I finished it let me save, and I was like, oh, and it told me like, oh, you can pick up like when you actually get the game. And I had thought I pre-ordered it, but I didn't, and I was gonna do it. I felt like I was gonna do it anyway because I feel like I was convinced that this game was gonna be good already. But after playing the demo, I was 100% like, oh yeah, I'm going to pre-order this. I have no reason not to.
Right.
I think I literally took off. I think it comes out on a Thursday, and I took off on Thursday and then said, you know what, might as well also ask to try and get time off on Friday too. So I might as well just take those 2 days. It was fun. The combat is a blast, and the story so far is actually really compelling. Like the way they described it, I was like, it sounds interesting, but I'm not sure how much I'm gonna like it. It might be one of those things that's a little bit too focused in like old school politics, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna like it, but I actually like it a lot. And it is very reminiscent of something like Game of Thrones, where on the surface, when you think about something like that, you think it might be boring, but shows like Game of Thrones are actually really interesting.
Right.
And it's like that. And the story so far, like there's I don't want to. Oh, I'm not going to spoil it, but there's this thing I figured out towards the end of the demo, for the first part of the demo that shows the first couple hours of the game, that I did not notice in any of the trailers or other gameplay that we've seen, despite the fact that this is stuff that we've seen in all the trailers before. And I was like, wow, they did a good job of like, despite them showing us arguably way too much of this game over the past like half year, like they just won't stop showing us stuff. But despite that fact, I just never noticed about this one specific thing. I don't even know. I'm trying to think if I should say it. Do
You
you,
probably shouldn't.
are you gonna play this game?
I might actually.
Okay, because yeah, I'm not gonna say it. It's good though. It feels like it's something they're setting up to be a twist, but if you pay attention, it's noticeable at the very beginning. Um, but yeah, just moving on from that, I'm gonna just talk about getting to the specifics of the combat. So I had to switch to controls when I was playing through the second portion of the demo. That takes place a little bit further into the game.
Mm,
Um, because I'm used to dodging in most video games with circle, but in this
right.
game, in the default controls, it was R1, which is
Mm,
strange. So you can't manually change the controls, but you can choose from preset options. So the second option literally just turns it into like a um, like a Souls game where like you attack with the triggers, like those are the buttons you use to do your melee attack,
right.
and you press circle to dodge. And Jedi Survivor is the same way. Um,
It's
but
funny that you say that.
despite
Oh,
now, I
go
was
ahead.
gonna say, despite me like saying that you can switch the controls to be like a Souls game, it's this game is nothing like Souls game. It's 100% through and through hack and slash. It's literally being made by the same combat director from Devil May Cry 5, and it definitely feels like a Devil May Cry or a Bayonetta in terms of combat.
Nice, exciting. Love
But
Bayonetta's combat.
yeah, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, it's funny that you say the thing about like R1 using the dodge. I think it's because I've played so many uh games done by Platinum and all that. I'm used to the R1 dodge. Circle to dodge sounds very strange to me.
Yeah, in most like Souls inspired action games, circle is the dodge button. Uh, and like instead of using the face buttons like square and triangle to do your melee attacks, R1 and R2 are the melee attacks. Like the default is that square is your melee attack. What's triangle? I forget what triangle. Triangle, I think, is like your special iconic ability, and X, of course, is to jump. But if you change the controls, it took me a while to get used to it. By the end of that second part of the demo, I actually got really used to it. And was it R2 became the button you use to do your projectile? Oh, that's what triangle was. Triangle was projectile. Um,
Gotcha.
and it switched it to where R1 was your melee attack, which you, with each iconic ability you can do like a 4 button combo. And then R2 became your projectile, which makes sense because it's a trigger. L2 became your special ability for whatever iconic ability you had equipped at the time. L1 is lock on, X is still jump, circle became dodge, and triangle, you hold down triangle and press either R1 or R2 to do another set of special abilities. And then square, I don't remember what square was. Oh, square was to switch between the iconic abilities, I think. Um,
Gotcha.
yeah, it's like when I was first playing it, because of course naturally at the very beginning you only have access to the powers of Phoenix, and so you're not switching between them. So I was wondering like how is this going to get deeper because it feels very like most hack and slash games. It starts off very basic, and I'm like,
Right.
how's this combat gonna get deeper? I can dodge and all that jazz. It's cool and all, but and parry. You parry by literally pressing attack and attacking a character at the same time they attack. And once I was fighting this kind of mini boss where I got a handle on that, and I was like, ooh, this is good. But where I noticed where the complexity is gonna come in is when I got to the point where they were like showing me how to upgrade, and I saw the upgrades that I could get, and I was like, oh, this is how it's gonna get more complicated. You unlock abilities that make the combat a little bit more complicated, and
Rich.
it's rich. Rich is the perfect word. It's a classic case of low skill floor, high skill ceiling.
Ah.
You could make it as complicated as you want it to be, but at a base level, it's just as difficult as you need it as you want it to be. Um, what is it? I know we talked before about the I forget what they call them, but I'm gonna just say trinkets because I can't remember what they're called. Where you can equip things to make instead of having like there is no difficulty options, you can choose story mode or like action or like I think like combat focused mode. And I chose combat focused. And if you choose story mode, they equip you with these things, these gameplay modifiers that essentially one of them was actually auto equipped on the second part of the demo that I played. Um, and I was gonna take it off, but I was like, you know what? Let me actually try it out and test it out so I can talk about it on the podcast. And what it does is tell you like slow down time for a brief moment whenever an enemy goes to attack you, so it gives you time to dodge for people who have a hard time dodging. Which I was low key having a hard time dodging even with that on, so I have a feeling that that's gonna be necessary for some people because
Right.
dodging is gonna get a little bit difficult with faster enemies. Though I do plan on trying to play the entire game with none of these gameplay modifiers on. And there's other ones that like there was another one that was on that automatically had one of your partners, which was a dog named Torgal, just automatically you can tell it what to do, but if you put this on, it just fights by itself.
Oh,
And there are a lot of other ones. Like there's one that I forget what the other ones do. I think there's one that like parries for you or something like that. There's ones that really just remove. There's one that does auto combos. That's one. To where you just literally just press a single button and it does a cool combo and combines a bunch of different of like you would have to press a bunch of different buttons to do this combo, but you can just smash the attack button to do combos with that equipped. And essentially,
okay.
like similar to like what we talked about with Zelda before, of how adding accessibility options into the actual gameplay rather than having it just be a menu option. That's essentially what they're doing in this game. And I also got to
Right.
try out that active time lore that we talked about last time. And
Mhm.
what you do is you just hold the touchpad whenever you're in a cutscene. You just hold the touchpad and it'll open up the active time lore, and
Oh,
it'll tell you about the characters that are in that scene. It'll tell you about the place that you're in. If anybody brings up any like some people kept bringing up like battles of like stuff that happened before in the like history of this universe, and you could go into active time lore and read about that battle. Um,
ooh.
it's real cool. This game is gonna be good, man. This game is gonna be good. But yeah, that is the last thing I have. Anything you got
Uh,
before you wrap up? Like any thoughts about
uh,
this?
I'm excited. I know I was kind of skeptical when I first saw the trailer, but in hearing you talk about the demo, I'll probably give it a shot. Also, with the Capcom thing, the Capcom Showcase, it definitely did suck, but I caught part of it, and they're re-releasing the three Apollo Justice
Yeah,
Journey spin-offs, and I am so excited because those are the Ace Attorney games that I did not get to play. That's all I've got, though. I'm excited about Apollo Justice.
am I wrong in believing that they like weren't released in America for a while?
No, you're thinking of Ace Attorney Investigations. The first one
Okay.
was released in America, but then they didn't release the second one. I hope that someday we get Ace Attorney Investigations too. Oh, also in the Great Ace Attorney, which was like a prequel to Ace Attorney, was not released in America for a long time until recently.
Oh, okay. That's
Yep,
dope. Yeah. But yeah, that's all we got. This is gonna be a big boy podcast.
long episode.
It's gonna be a little bit over 2 hours long, like 2 hours 8 minutes. I think it depends. I might, some stuff might get cut. That makes it shorter. But
Right.
I'm Dijon. You find my ads below me. That's Ira. You find their ads below them. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel if you want to see more storytelling content, and to click the notification bell so that you're notified when we post. Peace.
See y'all.